Dear Catherine, I'll never get used to calling you that, but I'll give it a shot. The reunion is a wonderful idea. Well, with enough notice, I'm family codependent. I'm game anywhere, anytime. The same would hold if Bob were still alive. And that's how my marriage lasted so long. It wasn't prison. He encouraged me to do whatever would make me happy. In fact, he may be still at it. I'm going to Las Vegas in a couple of days, and I was looking through some of his stuff. I could only do this for short periods of time, and found an old empty wallet. Closer inspection revealed a $50 bill. Not that the bill translates into a royal flush in Vegas, my agnosticism may tip once again toward belief in an afterlife. Let me know what you hear from anyone else, and we can get Closer inspection revealed a $50 bill. Now, if the bill translates into a royal flush in Vegas, my agnosticism may tip once again toward belief in an afterlife. Let me know what you hear from anyone else. Wow. Whoa. Closer inspection revealed a $50 bill. Now, if that bill translates into a royal flush in Vegas, my agnosticism may tip once again toward belief in an afterlife. Let me know when you hear from anyone else. We can get down to some serious planning. Don't watch the mail for Casey, but she could possibly pick up the phone. Of course, she is tethered to that oxygen tank, so I don't think she can fly. I'm not sure how that goes. I have no objection to the Portland area. In fact, I have a stepson and stepdaughter in Vancouver, right next door. I don't like driving at night either, even in familiar areas, but I do like to drive. I used to go on freeways and like them, but even in a prime, I would not attempt to drive in L.A. Bob and I did drive to San Diego about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was harrowing. At this point, I was doing most of the driving. It didn't start out that way. Early on, we would make an annual drive to Minnesota and Chicago, where his family lived, and my palms would sweat just relieving him for 50 miles or so. But he was very patient and a good teacher. I still recall the day when he pronounced me a good highway driver. I was going to get a dog. We live right next to a park. When Adam was gone at night, I was feeling spooked. Then grandson Daniel talked me into boarding his girlfriend's bulldog while she was in her family vacation in the Philippines. He told me it would help me to decide whether or not I wanted a dog. The dog was very placid. And then she decided not to get a dog. Why did she even reference that at this point? Yeah, the dog. I decided not to get a dog. That's all I'm going to say. I decided not to get a dog. I got ATT instead of a dog. I thought you might enjoy the pictures of Abra and Kadabra. Kadabra has the red tag. At this point, we can tell them apart by personality. Kadabra is friendly and vocal and gets into everything that has an opening. Abra is shy and will only allow petting on her terms. And we'd better keep it brief and must keep our hands off of her head. She will tolerate a little scratching behind the collar, where her microchip sometimes bothers her, but don't mistake it for an affection. They're inside cats, and our doors are wired thanks to ADT, so we can hear if anybody opens them. Philip, at 10 years old, is finally too old to forget to shut the door, and Dan and Pam's Donovan is only 6 months old. It'll give a while before we have to worry about the cats getting out. They don't seem inclined to dash out the door anyway. Adam really enjoys reading about your cats. I don't recall right now what I told you, if anything, about Pam and Dan's situation. And we're not going to go there. No. At least not here. No. So we're going to skip that. I really enjoyed reading about your life and goings-on. You write a really good letter. Neat, too. Must have been all the convent stuff. I hope you make room for messy friends. I don't know about Mary Jean, but with no kids and her husband's military background, I suspect she's very neat also. Tobias's house looks like something from the pages of Good Housekeeping. I try not to hold it against them. Thank God for Casey. Compared to her, I am Martha Stewart. That's why I love her, even though she never writes. No time to proofread. You're on your own. So that's the lady with the cats that she's writing to. Yeah. In January. Not sure when the dog is brought up. It was like a year ago. It doesn't make any sense. Dee Dee, thank you so much for the beautiful birthday card and wishes. For sure the card will be a keeper. Adam threatened to send my name to the Hoarders TV show. That was last year, though. Oh, she was mentioning that. But there were some things that I didn't part with. Also, in his case, it's the pot calling the kettle black. You gotta see his room. Of course, everything in there is something that the Smithsonian has its eyes to advance world culture, especially with Captain Kirk transformer model with one leg gone. Gotta be awesome. Captain Kirk Transformer model. One like that would be cool. It was actually Dax. It was a Dax. Yeah, Ezri Dax toy had a leg that fell off. But yes, anyway. It's funny that she doesn't catch her. Your brood sounds as though it is doing just fine. 5 cats. I hope they're fixed. Do any of them like to chomp plastic? The vet says it's normal because plastic crinkles, but I think she just didn't want to tell Adam that his cats are a little short on brain cells. You can't leave plastic bags anywhere within reach. I decided that I was washing too many tablecloths, so I put on a plastic protector on ours. They're already nibbling on the edges. I don't know if I ever told you, but one of those cats had a plastic thing hanging out of its rear end. It was Cadabra. I gave it a yank, and it turned out to be the wrong thing to do, $80 later. That's when we learned that plastic crinkle theory. Well, the rubberized foam packing peanuts don't crinkle, and then they enjoy them also. Also, they do prefer the regular white ones. They'll eat nothing except one brand of cat food, an expensive one, of course, and plastic. The kind of cat won't eat fish. I told Adam that they'd better never escape the house, as they would starve to death. I'm sure that a dead bird would be too much for their delicate constitutions. Donovan gets along with most of us. Mommy gets the wildest smile when she returns from somewhere. Also, she leaves and has to return for something. He spots her. He is inconsolable. So it must be at that age. Sammy will probably get more social in the future. That's for Dee Dee's grandson. Donovan is getting better looking every day, but I'm secretly worried about... I'm not saying that part. Yeah. Worried about something. I'm not going to say it. Okay, I'm glad that Peter is okay. Give him my regards, although he's a bit antisocial and on the extreme other end of the kissing cousin scale. Even though as children we were raised together by Grandma Leone, we never got very close as adults. Tony was the friendliest, and of course Johnny was killed in an auto crash when he was about 25. I didn't know him as an adult either, just Tony. I don't know that Misty got a divorce. Sounds like it may have been a good move. Martha already has a significant other. No, he wasn't waiting in the wings because I asked her. Not that she would ever lie to her mother, of course. She wanted me to rotate Sunday dinner between this Jim and Ian, claiming that last now she wanted to come for dinner on Sundays and he doesn't have the kids, so he can see them during the week. Well, it's fine with me, but I told her that it's way too soon for me to welcome Jim into the family, and that Ian's chair would stay empty. Martha has been bugging me to meet Jim for months, and I keep finding excuses. I wouldn't want to live with somebody like Ian myself, because he's really a cold fish and makes Adam's social skills look magnanimous. And Adam doesn't have many being Asperger's person. Anyway, the encounter will be a week from Sunday. As I said, I didn't want to have to do it on my birthday. Martha is cooking on my birthday. She's being laid off, so I refused to let her take me on to dinner, as it was the first plan. As for the layoff, California's in trouble financially, and she works for the county. I advised her to use that downtime to go after her BS, a bachelor's degree. She has an AA, but in her field, even a master's is pretty standard. You want to get anywhere. Just hope there's enough alimony to cover the rent, because I'm the landlord. Since Martha is not much of a cook, nobody's much looking forward to the meal. That was back then. I'd rather be in a casino, but since I'm going to Vegas again in a few days, starting February 2nd, Bob's niece Judy will be there from Chicago, and she and I are buddies. If I go gambling twice in 1 month, the family will have an intervention and make me join Gamblers Anonymous. Of course, when I get a real flush, I'll want to know what I bought them. I want to make the mail pickup. That's 15 minutes from this Valentine's Day. If it doesn't make it on time, I hope yours was nice. Hi to Dave. No time to edit. You're on your own, kid. Well, it is weird that this story is written like 3 months after the divorce was final when she got another boyfriend. That is a little strange. That's quick. Yeah, it just is. It's weird. It's strange. Not drama. It's just strange. It's all. Holidays, Dee Dee. The holidays make me think of you. So happy St. Patrick's Day. Dee Dee. All the holidays make me think of you. So happy St. Patrick's Day. Bob had a dab of Irish, so I have any. It's osmosis. Dad really exploits this. Dan. Damn it. As for Dee Dee. As the holidays make me think of you. So happy St. Patrick's Day. Bob had a dab of Irish. So the corned beef. Oh fuck. Come on. All the holidays make me think of you. So happy St. Patrick's Day. Dee Dee, all of the holidays make me think of you, so happy St. Patrick's Day. Bob had a dab of Irish, so I have any. Dee Dee, all of the holidays make me think of you, so happy St. Patrick's Day. Bob had a dab of Irish, so if I had any, it would be by osmosis. Dan really exploits his even more diluted dab, except for not liking corned beef and cabbage, which must be some kind of serious sin in Ireland. He did drink green beer with me, however. Then there was my Vegas trip, which was a success. I had no business going to find you're only 70... There's my Vegas trip, which was a success. I had no business going, but you're only 75 once. Thank God I won enough to make up for the financial recklessness. That's a quarter machine in the picture. It's video poker. If you get 4 of a kind, you can choose from one of 5 treasure chests. Most of the chests contain 140 quarters. There's also 250 quarters and 500 quarter treasure chest. The big one is 1,119, just below having to declare it to the IRS. I almost fell off the stool when I opened that one. Also, I lost a week for a damn cold. I was sicker than I should have been with a cold, and since I'm prone to pneumonia, I was getting concerned. But I finally came out of it a day or 2 ago, and except for a leftover cough, I'm now feeling human again. I did have Martha's Jim to dinner, and was not impressed. Only Phil likes him, and Martha, of course. He gives Phil the attention that his dad never gave him. Martha's layoff has been postponed until June, thank goodness. 3 more months of her not having to worry about health insurance, and they want an arm and a leg, private policy. Dear Jan and Tom, I couldn't let St. Patrick's Day go by without thinking of the Irish side of the family. Bob had a dab of Irish, which he exploited to the fullest. Danny's Irish genes are even more diluted, but that doesn't stop him from celebrating the day to the fullest, although he doesn't like corned beef and cabbage, which must be some sort of serious Irish sin. He will join me in the green beer department. I did okay in Vegas, where I had no business going considering the state of my finances, but I decided that I should be rewarded for having reached 75 without killing any family members. The picture shows a video poker machine called Treasure Chest. And then she goes on to say that, well, I just talked about that. Except that night, most of the month has been shitty. Yvonne had a spinal fusion in her neck Thursday. She's doing okay, but the recovery will be slow, and she has lost her job because she's lost too much time. Before breaking her neck, she had grand mal convulsions, the cause for which has not been diagnosed. Not really. Anyway, Martha has a new boyfriend, and nobody likes him, except her, of course. He pays a lot of attention to Philip, and Ian didn't. So Philip is not complaining, but Sarah hates him, of course. She's 13 and hates everybody. Dan is getting a bad time at work because they've been putting him on the radio doing the sports update every half an hour. He was the last hired, and the other guys are extremely jealous and banded together to give him a bad time. He's thinking about quitting, except that nobody gives up any kind of job in this economy, and he has a little mouth to feed. Isn't the baby adorable? To Jan and Tom. Yeah. So I'm going to have to kind of clarify something here. I think I'd feel the same way. Although Libby, someone I know, is very disappointed. Libby and her friend are in their 80s and have been going together for 14 years. His name is Wally. I asked Wally why he didn't marry her, and he said that her kids were too weird. I met one of them. He's right. Martha was supposed to have been laid off March 3rd. She worked for the county, the Catholic Charities, and all branches of California are in deep doo-doo financially. She's been given a reprieve until June. Her biggest worry is health insurance, and we won't go into that. We don't need to do that. Ian was a good provider, but in the short list on his virtues, his husband and father. He comes to dinner every other week. The weekend that he doesn't have the children, so that he can see them. Martha wanted me to put Mr. Wonderful in the rotation and alternate the two of them. That is really bizarre. I declined. If she remarries, she will lose her alimony, which is scheduled to receive for 6 years. I hope that this will slow things down a bit. She's really taken with him. He's probably just normal. But compared to Ian's aloofness, any guy would look warm and fussy. Eleanor, I like Eleanor. I have Eleanor's picture on my right table, and I love the picture. I hope that your back has improved. Tom.
It is a conceit, but clearly, early 2011 Jim was kind of obnoxious. Yes, just to put it nicely and mildly. Yes. Anyway, this next one is for Jan. She's writing to Jan again, or the other Jan, I guess. Yes, the other Jan. What terrible news about Tim's friend. What a tragic accident. Adam had to tell me what an ATV was. Courtney will sure remember Easter 2011 for many bad reasons, unfortunately. Apparently her husband wrecked a... It could still be Janice. There's a Janice, yes. Somebody crashed on an ATV. It sounds as though you had a good trip. It's too bad that things went downhill from when you got home. Was Jim's house badly hit by the paintball? It must have been 11-year-olds. So there was a paintball gun, like... That's paintball. Does she know what a paintball is? Because that's not going to do anything. Maybe she doesn't. Yes, a paintball wouldn't just mess up the paint to repaint part of it. No, it's not a big deal. Not really. She thought it was. And this is their gym over there. It's a different gym. And it's not the gym that I know from the cast. It's not my friend Jim. That would be weird. That'd never happen. Yeah. Back in the day, the friend Jim from my high school, yeah, he tried to pick up on Martha. It didn't work. And, he never did that again. Yeah. So it's a different guy. Anyway, here's a third Jim. And it's being mentioned in the story. It's good that Jim's girlfriend has no allergies. Adam has IBS, and it's sure had hard to work around it. We didn't know it until a couple of years ago. He thought that everybody had to rush to the toilet after they ate. That's another factor for disabled kids. Without peers to keep you informed and tease you about things, it's hard to figure out what life is all about. Adam has 2 or 3 good friends from high school. One he sees almost every Thursday night. Yes, says John Yeager or Mark's Cards, yes. And, and like those friends, moms click here is kind of the same idea. They go, it says Thursday night. One he sees almost every Thursday night. They go to eat and come back and do some filming. John majored in cinematography, and Adam loves science fiction. They film stuff, nothing I'm interested in, but I see literal miniature sets all over his room, which I enter only in case of an emergency, with a hard hat on. The other friend is married, so they mainly do birthdays. The third one is too weird. Fetal alcohol syndrome and other things. Jim Buffkin, the other Jim, yes. Even his parents, he's adopted, couldn't take him any longer and sent him up with a trailer home in Santa Cruz. Well, a manufactured home. Yeah. Or they call it a trailer. Adam still feels sorry for him, and his loyalty prompts him to meet him for lunch at the mall once in a while. These boys lived miles away, so there's no getting together after school. Adam was constantly hassled by the kids in our neighborhood. Martha would go and hassle them back occasionally, but it was far from normal development situation. And of course, Asperger's social development is especially what needs to be worked on. It's amazing that Adam has gotten as far as he did. As for Ron, it's okay for me that he's quit answering the phone. I often had a hard time finally getting him to quit talking so I could speak to Anne. She's sort of afraid of the phone because of her hearing. So now she's jumped to Ron and Anne because it's Jan Slattery, you'd see. Yes. And the other crazy friend is Jim Buffkin. It wasn't just fetal alcohol syndrome. Jim Buffkin is schizophrenic. He's a bipolar schizophrenic. Yeah. Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah. Borderline personality disorder. He was kind of bonkers. Okay, now we're back to Anne. Anne did answer and said that Ron was asleep on the couch. Sort of unusual for midday. I hope he's not depressed also. That's her being carried out of the place. What? Oh, I'm being summoned. She did answer, and Anne did answer and said that Ron was asleep on the couch. Sort of unusual for midday. I hope he's not depressed also. Also for being carried out of that place. The paramedics could break their necks on those damn stairs. I think they must sell the place before they can move, and are probably asking too much for it. In August, the 5 women in my high school clique are going to have a reunion in Portland. 2 of us live in the area, and 1 in Southern California, the 4th in Arizona. She used to be a nun, so I lost track of her until last year, except for that reunion in Duluth 5 years ago. The 5 lives in Portland. The 5th lives in Portland, and is tied to oxygen, so she can't fly down where we would prefer to hold it. I don't really mind Portland, because Robert and Yvonne live in town next door, Vancouver, Washington, and I'm overdue for a visit there anyway. I planned on driving, but when the high cost of gas here, I calculated that it would be the same as a bus fare. Also, Adam is not really a backup driver. I had taken the bus alone last year, and it was fine. This year it was not fine. They added many more stops and a couple hours more to the return trip. There already was a 2 hour and 40-minute wait for a bus transfer in San Fernando, and an hour was added to that because the bus was tied in LA traffic. When it finally got there, it was so crowded that Adam and I couldn't even sit together. None of the overhead lights worked, so I had to sit in the dark next to a stranger for mile after mile, composing in my head a scathing letter to Greyhound. My experience last year had been so good that I was considering a bus to Minnesota. It must be the economy affecting Greyhound now. More stops and more crowding. Furthermore, I not only didn't win, but taught Adam to play video poker, and in no time nickels were too boring for him. In the past, he'd been content to read a book or watch TV in the hotel room some of the time, or play a few nickels. At last we got to enjoy the relatives, and the food was cheap and good. I still hope to go to Minnesota sometime this year, but it is whizzing by. Friday will be 2 years since Bob died. Hard to believe. Adam and I went to the cemetery on Easter. As I left, I noticed on this huge, elaborate, multicolored crypt a person had also died April 29th, a 9-year-old. Then I saw a father and a sister, age 11, had died the same day. The mother's space was still empty. Suddenly none of my problems seemed that insignificant. The poor woman. The stonework must have cost thousands, but it sure wouldn't console under the circumstances. I had to end this letter so much a downer that I write a little longer. Dan, Pam, and Donovan stayed here a while. Dan, Adam, and I were in Vegas. The house was surprisingly in order when we got back. Returned. But I didn't realize how big the party must have been until I saw the beer case cartoons in the recycler. It kind of looked like a bullet hole. At least, it's a little bigger than a dime in size. It must have been some party. Dan picked up us at the Greyhound at 1 p.m. without complaint. It may have been a guilty conscience. But as they say, don't sweat the small stuff. So there's like a bullet hole somewhere. Yeah, I think it's still there. Yeah. Okay.
Moni, thank you for the Mother's Day card. It's hilarious. We all got a good laugh. It's true about the clothes. But I'm still guilty about that terrible, permanent thing I talked you into when we lived in North Bay. I thought you might enjoy this article about the mural. Oh, permanent. Oh, that's a reference to a hairdo. Yes. But I also feel guilty about the terrible permanent that I talked you into when we lived in North Bay. So she was a teenager, got a horrible permanent. Permanents on teenagers just look like crap. There was a girl in high school that, like Allison, got a permanent. It looked terrible. Like, don't put permanents on teenagers. Just don't. It makes them look like a fussy old lady. It's just, no. Don't do that. Don't. Just don't. They look terrible. I thought you might enjoy this article about the mural. Another honor for Dad. There are several glass doors side by side at the new senior center, and the mural is high over those entrance doors. It should have been, they call it the Barbara Lee Senior Center. It should have been the Estelle Knapp Senior Center. But, just an aside, it's the Barbara Lee Senior Center. I go there once a month to hear Wally's band, and they play Dad's kind of music, and he loved it. Loved to go. I also met when they had a gambling trip to wait for the bus. Other than that, I find it depressing to be around all those old people. She's old herself. Also, about 80% of them are Asian, and they're very clannish, and few even acknowledge your presence. There's a community room in the senior center named for Denny Weisgerber. I told him congratulations, and that it was nice that he didn't have to die first. I think he was taken aback a little, but he was a Marine, and I'm sure he'll recover. No, he wasn't taken aback. It's funny, but no, they need a park after. And Martha's boyfriend Jim was considerate enough to have pizza ready for all when we finally got home. She seemed very happy with him. Ian is here on Sunday, and Jim is the alternate. We are truly a strange family. Martha's going back to work at least today. Martha's going back to work today. At least she'll try it. She doesn't want to use up all of her sick leave in case some of the kids get sick with something that she has to be there for. Usually I take care of them when they're under the weather. One thing that I didn't do was watch Donovan, except occasionally when Dan dashes to the store and I have Adam for backup. My 75 years have begun to show when it comes to carrying kids around. I'm not steady enough on my feet, especially with Birkenstocks on. Why did she have those? I'll have some foot problems, nothing serious. Corn and a toenail that likes to grow, and just pressure from a full shoe on, or very long. Otherwise, it'd be fine to toss the sandals and go for the sturdy old lady shoes. She really should have. I emailed Robert yesterday to see how Yvonne's job interview went on Monday. He had been pessimistic about her being rehired. I'm afraid that in this case, no news is bad news. I'll check my email before I make this, see if it hasn't been answered yet. Dan will go to Vegas with some guys a few days after his 25th birthday. I hope that I won't regret loaning them my Prius for the trip. It's part of his birthday present, along with a little gambling money. His birthday is May 19th, and we will celebrate this coming Sunday. Doesn't Moni know that? Moni's the... Yeah, Auntie Moni, she knows that. His birthday is May 19th, and we will celebrate it coming Sunday. I also let the birthday person choose the menu, and Dan wants hamburgers, but they will be made from beef that we sear and then grind in the food processor, so they will be safe to eat medium rare. He also wants homemade apple pie instead of a cake, so my weekend will be busy. I have a gadget that peels and slices apples. When it works properly, it will stop working a few times, but the swearing that I have to do to get it back on track is a... Wait a minute. He also wants homemade apple pie instead of a cake, so my weekend will be busy. I have a little gadget that peels and slices the apples. When it works properly, but it will stop working at times. And the swearing that I have to do to get it back on is on track with my special apple pie spice, which enhances the cinnamon and nutmeg. Pam said it would be okay for him to go, but she's being about some other things, and probably really isn't okay that he goes. But the fancy hotel deal that he got months ago on the internet is probably paid for. They were last part briefly, and appear to have been made up. They were here last night briefly, and appear to have made up, but I sure got an earful Tuesday when I drove Dan to Bart. He was so upset that he wanted to divorce. But he wasn't married yet. That's funny. I don't think I want to read that. One of their blogs. Yeah, that's kind of funny. I mean, it's funny. They were here last night briefly and appeared to have made up, but I sure got an earful Tuesday when I drove Dan to Bart. He was so upset that he wanted a divorce until I reminded him he wasn't married yet. Sorry, if you lead it with a little jib there, it's funny. Martha will help Pan watch Donovan while he's gone, and I'll help Martha will help watch Donovan while he's gone, and I can spell her a little, especially if he's asleep, while she takes a shower or runs an errand. Despite both of them are quite spoiled, but they really love Donovan. And I'm just going to read only that. Pam got a 6-month paid internship at Foster City. The company interviewed people for 2 weeks, and she's the one who got the job. So she's a smart lady. Babysitting will be another looming problem. And then she cuts to Ariel, who's Moni's oldest daughter, niece Ariel. Hope that Ariel is having an easy pregnancy. Say hello for me. If she's whipping ultrasound pictures out of her wallet to show people, tell her not to feel guilty, as Dan has already broken the ground. Adam and I went to Vegas last month to say goodbye to Auntie Martha and Uncle John. We went on a Greyhound, which I no longer recommend. My trip last year was fine, but they have cut back on service and increased the stops. We were late getting home, 1 a.m. instead of 11:30 p.m., but Dan picked us up without a hint of complaint. Uncle John has health issues on the way home. He has finally conceded not to drive if they can go to Vegas next year. Hooray. Yeah, he should not have been driving. All right. Next is Rosie. June 2011. Rosie, I'm sending birthday thoughts your way. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. I've lost track of how old my nieces are. But don't tell me. I recently realized that all of my stepchildren are over 60, and it was depressing. Not to mention making me feel ancient. Danny celebrated his 25th birthday last month with 7 of his buddies in Las Vegas. It was nice of Pam to okay the trip. He'd been going on and on about it. His birthday, milestone. And got us all sucked in. Mine was 28, not 25. But Dan's was 28. Yeah. Date that's still mentioned in infamy in the Two-Car Garage history book. I even loaned... back to this story, though. I even loaned him my Prius... this is Mom, talking to Rosie. I even loaned him my Prius as a birthday present. Gas was $4 a gallon at the time, and his old Mercury is a gas hog. Probably wouldn't have made it to Vegas anyway. Las Vegas is about 500 plus miles from here. Of course, there was a second car. It's hard enough to fit the 4 big guys in the Prius. They said that they had a wonderful time. I didn't want details, as I was worried through both of them and my car. I celebrated my 75th at, where else? The casino. The bus got back. Dan and the family had a nice barbecue and dinner with all the fixings ready. I didn't mean to make you jealous, but the barbecue was in February on the 1st. I know that you guys have had a terrible winter. Every morning I check out the weather on TV to see what all of my special people are putting up with. I have grown unhappy with night driving, and now I know why. Cataracts affects your night vision first. So I may have to put up the Minnesota trip again this year. As an aside, I quit driving because of that on... Dan is still working at the Giants radio station about once a week. He does a sports update on the radio in an hour and a half hour. He also does a commercial or two now and then. I set my timer when I know he's on and get a big kick out of hearing, "This is Dan Brown with your sports update. I must be a grandma, huh?" Marty does the same thing when she's not working. Martha thought that she would be laid off from Catholic Charities, but their contract got extended until July of 2012. They're somehow connected with the county, and you know that California's in deep doo-doo financially, so nothing is certain there. Even Danny was worried because they announced possible layoffs at work, but nothing has happened for weeks. And now he's decided to just said that to make them all work harder. Pam got a paid internship and will be pulling a paycheck for at least 6 months at the time the internship lasts. Hers is full-time. Since Dan's job is part-time, he'll be babysitting 3 days a week. And guess who would make him a house husband if they were married? Martha does watch Donovan on Mondays, her day off, and Pam's mother does on Fridays. They consider me too old to babysit, thank God. Donovan is cutie, though, and very active. I still do the Grandma Leone bit of gathering the family for dinner on Sunday nights, and it takes me a good chunk of the next day to put my house back together after Donovan tears through it. Of course, I could get help before they go home because they offer, and even do start the effort of picking things up, but by that point I'm just happy that everybody's finally going home. I don't want to slow that down, so I just say I'll get it in the morning. In the morning I'm dismayed at the mess. That doesn't help to make any sense, does it? I think I've told you that the clique of girls that I belonged to in high school had kept in touch over the years, which is pretty remarkable in itself. We are spreading all over the place, although 3 of us ended up in various parts of California. Same thing with John and Tim and Jim and Buffkin. I don't know where Jim Buffkin is. John and Tim and me. Yeah, it's the same thing there, as an aside. Yeah. Jim Buffkin disappeared in 2017. I'm saying. Anyway, back to Mom's, where we were going to have a mini reunion in August in Portland. Originally, it was planned around there, but Casey is tied to an oxygen tank, and her doctor won't let her travel that far to Vancouver. Vancouver, where Robert and Yvonne live, is right next door to Portland, so I'll probably drive up with Adam if he can stay with them. It's over 700 miles, so I don't plan on driving straight through, although Robert does when he visits. He can see better at night than I can. I'm stopping at dusk. I probably told you at Christmas that Martha was getting a divorce. She did, and is a new guy who seems to be okay. Anyway, it makes her happy. Well, wow. He may be just an ordinary person, affection-wise, but Ian was so bad in that department that he'd make anyone else look good. Ian still comes to dinner every Sunday now, on the weekend that he doesn't have the kids, and Jim comes on the alternate Sunday. And a strange family in that way. When Bob was alive and we visited the grandchildren in Michigan, Robert's daughter lives there, we would stay at the home of Robert's ex-wife and her husband. There's another Robert. I'll bet not too many people can make that claim. Teresa divorced Robert, but not us. I guess that set a precedent because Ian is still among us. How is your family? You didn't send me one bit of news at Christmas. If it weren't for Marge, I wouldn't be able to keep track of you. She usually writes me after Christmas, when she has more time. I love your card, though. We have a family tradition of choosing our favorite Christmas card, and each person's choice stays up all year. Yours was my winner this year, so I see everyone's smiling face pretty often. This year, the cards landed on the outside of the pantry door, as I haven't done the decorating that I wanted to do in the room that will be a den. I'm trying to teach Adam to run the house in case I get dingy someday. He's making... And I'm just the opposite now. It's harder to get up once I get down there. So we're working things out. Thanks for the Giants game. There's still hope, although the injuries are making it tough. I guess you Twins fans can relate to that. Hello and hugs to all. We're in the middle of June 2011. Yep. We are. Janice. Soon I will write you an update letter to let you know how the insane asylum around here is faring. But there's a couple of things I want to relay. ASAP, speaking of Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to George. I will have everybody over later, and there are time constraints. I also need to get up to the cemetery. So I think this is the other Janice. Yeah, it's the other one. But I feel so bad about not writing you sooner. Your name is to be on my to-do list numerous times for a letter. We're not going to get anything get in the way of my mailing this for tomorrow morning's pickup. My urgency is because I reviewed your last Christmas letter, and I can't believe that I didn't respond immediately. I didn't know what the hell I was doing at Christmas to distract me from important things. Probably the usual chaos. Plus the Christmas frenzy. Plus wishing that Bob were still here to help me handle things. I know what you wish you could see more of Mary Ann and her family, but believe me, living right on top of your kids is a double-edged sword. Most of the time is taken up with the problems and needs. Everything is urgent, and the problem notices is a rarity. Only recently have I begun to take a stand, and now frequently remind them that they forget I am 75 years old, even if I don't hollow yet. Anyway, besides my updating my daily to-do list, I have to-do box. In the to-do box is another box in which there are at least half a dozen pieces of correspondence of people that I need to contact for various reasons. I found the to-do box after she died. Yeah, that went in the garbage. Just recently, actually, several years, almost over a year later, I found the to-do box. Yeah, it went bye-bye. Back to the story. Your letter was in there and kept reminding myself that you had health issues, and I need to write and find out what's going on. I've helped you to forgive me. There are some things in there related to Bob's funeral, which have been over 2 years ago now. Some people were so kind and helpful, and I had managed to write and thank them, but I usually suggested getting together at a future date for coffee or something. Follow-up has been sorely neglected. How are you doing? Are you better? What's the matter? What was the matter? Doesn't sound like it was your favorite Christmas either. At least from a health standpoint. I'm hoping that by the time Christmas got there and your family arrived, things were a little better. Yep. She continues her letter the next day. So we're just going to do that. I'm just going to keep going. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. I hope this letter finds you feeling okay and your health issues improve or resolve. I'm truly sorry that I didn't write sooner. You've been on my mind often, and a letter to you and the to-do list for several months. Actually, I should quit with the to-do list. I should quit with that to-do list at the end of the day, as I usually accomplish about 5%, concentrating on what usually has to be done that day, and it's demoralizing. It's also a constant reminder that I've been somehow allowing other people's needs to eat up most of my time. I feel more hassled than when I was working. The family's still adjusting. I sorely miss Bob's calm leadership. He probably knew that we would. That's why he fought so hard to stay around. He probably also knew that I was lying, or at least engaged in wishful thinking, when I told him to go ahead and do what he had to do. That would be okay. Yesterday was Adam's third Father's Day without Bob, and they're not getting easier for him. Sunday dinner last night makes me wonder if I have the family over at all. Bob used to say that people move to Florida to get away from their kids, but perhaps he was just not kidding. Take last night. Ian was over, and it was alternate weekends. He totally ignored Mother's Day 2 years ago. That was the straw that broke the camel's back in their marriage. The divorce became final in December. So Martha was last year. So they were sitting there, having to be in the presence of Father's Day. So Martha was sitting there resenting having to be in his presence on Father's Day. She also wanted to be in some event with her new boyfriend, which whom none of us are yet too enamored. And despite my usual long protest, I caved in to Martha's pleas. And now this Jim comes to dinner on alternate Sundays. Dan was unhappy that Martha would even consider missing his first Father's Day, even though she had canceled her plans to be with the guy in favor of Danny. Then Dan and Pam had a fight, because she was trying to teach Donovan to climb the stairs. Let's just end right there and not do that little drama. Nothing happened, it was just drama. We're going to skip that. There was a fight, they left in a huff. I wish I could say that the above scenario was unusual. Perhaps I could write a sitcom and console myself with riches. Adam is starting to look like the most well-adjusted person in the house. That puts us in deep trouble. Funny. Chaos aside, when I resend your letter today in preparation for letting you know about our pending mini-reunion, I was truly appalled that I hadn't answered right away. I recall reading it while crossing the living room. Other people were here. I made a mental note to answer it, check how things are going, and placed it in my to-do box. I have one of those also. I wish they'd never sent me to the management class at work. Please forgive my neglect for not letting you know that I've been thinking about you. In mid-August, between the 14th and the 18th, 5 of us from Stanbrook have decided to get together for a mini-reunion. First, it was to have been in the Bay Area, but Casey's doctor wouldn't let her travel, as far as she tied to an oxygen tank. Previous pneumonias, not to mention smoking, have screwed up her lungs. So we decided to So we decided to convene in Portland, where she now lives. Jean Michel is flying from Arizona. Kathy Tobias from nearby in Sunnyvale. And Mary Jean Barrett from Southern California. Mary Jean will bring Tom, and Kathy will bring Peter. I will bring Adam, but only to dump him on Robert and Yvonne in the next door Vancouver. Adam is excited because he's never been to Seattle, and Robert has offered to drive him there to keep him entertained during our reunion. Actually, we took a train. When I mentioned to the gals that you could sometimes come up to California for the summer to visit George's family, they all wanted me to ask you to, if it's possible, to join us. When I mentioned to the gals that you sometimes come to California in the summer to visit George's family, they all wanted me to ask you if you could possibly join us. Is there any chance that this falls into place? That'd be wonderful. We plan to have a very good time. Jean now calls herself Catherine, but I can't get used to it, so I still call her Jean, and she forgives me. Anyway, she doesn't call me Victoria. Also, one Catherine, one Kathleen, and one Catherine are just too many Cathys for a small group, so it's my patriotic duty to call her Jean. Except for my cousins. Anytime I still hear Vicky, I know that it has to be someone I've known forever. Bob always called me Victoria. At work, I was Victoria, Valerie, Vivian, and Virginia. I answered to them all. Regarding the clipping, it is a terrible painting of Bob, but still an honor, as at least recognizable. I can't say the same for some of the other, most of which I know and knew. I still had to look them up in the guide to see who they were. So there's a painting in the senior center. As Adam remarked, gee, why didn't they choose to paint it from a picture from when he was well? Between the park sign and now the mural, we will never get to move from the city, even though it would make economic sense. The Bay Area is second to New York in living. As a sign of the mural will have to stay up over the multiple glass entrance doors at the community center. I still have the same email in case you didn't notice. Hi, George. D-Day. Day-Day. Middle of June, 2011. Day-Day, Day-Day, Day-Day. Dee Dee, it's always nice to discover a letter from you in the mailbox and to find out what you and your brood are up to lately. Poor little David. Some parts of growing up are harder than others. I can tell you're proud of him, and you certainly have a right to be. Dan did have the band thing for a few years. I've been told that they were pretty good, but it was hard to tell. It was very loud, and all the songs sounded the same to me. Since they practiced in my garage one year, I really can't say that I was heartbroken when they disbanded. No pun intended. Of course, most of the speakers and equipment are still in my garage, to the point where I can't get the car in anymore. It's a hard hat area out there. I keep suggesting to Dan that he could make lots of money by selling that stuff on eBay. No. Even though the card is late, milestone anniversary needs acknowledging. Happy anniversary. Yesterday would have been our 48th anniversary. I've already decided to do something special when 50 comes. It will probably involve a casino. Yesterday, I just went to the cemetery, and later Adam and I went to dinner. He's already been to the cemetery for Father's Day, which he seemed to take harder than ever this year. But grief hits when it wants to. And Bob's birthday, June 5th. I'm not too fond of June, as I used to be. By the way, what is your birthday? I must have known once, but before I can blame it on the dementia. Uh-oh. If you don't tell me, I'll pick a day and send you a card. The year's new dysfunction, due to the aging process, and other assorted joys is cataracts. I told my doctor, what do you mean I need my cataracts out? Last year you said they were just starting, and I shouldn't worry about it. She told me that it was 2 years ago. I wouldn't even have gone in this year, except that they summoned me by letter. I noticed trouble with my night vision, to the extent where I didn't like to drive at night, even in familiar territory, so they must be a problem. I'm not looking forward to it, as I don't even like eye drops in my eyes, let alone a scalpel. I'm glad that your Chicago trip went so well, and also glad to hear about the direct flight from O'Hare. Bob's sister lives near that airport, and I get as far as Chicago, even in the future, I would want to include Duluth. Vegetarians, eh? What a healthy vacation you must have. Does it possibly include a pasta, or maybe something you can manage? Say hello for me. That's good that Misty's life is getting better. Say hello for me. That's quite a photo from Florida. Is everything really pink like that? Dan celebrated his 25th birthday with 7 of his buddies in Vegas. I'm surprised that Pam okayed the trip. And then they go on to the gas in the car. We've done that before, so I'm going to skip that. Didn't want details about the trip to Vegas. Worried about both him and the car the whole time. They were gone. He's overdue coming home, and he texted Pam to tell us we got into town. But the phone was new to her, and she missed the message. I hadn't wanted to call Pam for fear of waking up the baby. Dan's phone kept going to voicemail. Dead batteries, it turned out. I had a very sleepless night, picturing Dan in a ditch somewhere. She was afraid that would happen. I kept telling myself all night that no news was good news, and out of 8 people, surely somebody would have notified me if there was a real problem. There was a positive end to the scale. On the despair end, I kept telling myself I should never have gotten married, or had kids or grandchildren because they drive you nuts. Dan is still working for the Giants radio station, 3 days a week. The rest of the time, you might call him a house husband, if he were married, minus the cleaning and cooking, of course. That'd be asking a little too much. He finds babysitting all day with a very active Donovan a real challenge. Not that any of us gives him much sympathy. Pam was expected to be for a paid internship out of 40 applicants, and that's 40 hours a week. Well, she lucked into that. Yeah, as an aside. Martha's day off is Monday, so she watched Donovan as Dan works on Monday, and Friday, and Sunday. Pam's father watches him Fridays. Thank God they consider me too old to babysit. I got tired just watching Martha and Dan chase him around. They've never gotten him used to a playpen, so he goes everywhere. The first thing he heads for is the cat's food and water. One of these days, I'm going to remember to put them away before he gets here. I still get a kick out of hearing Dan on the radio. He doesn't do it often, but some days I get to set on my timer every hour or the half hour to listen to his 2 minutes of sports report. Mid-August, 5 of us who went to Stanbrook Hall are going to have a mini reunion. We're all in the same gang in high school and have kept in touch over the years. It will be in Portland, as my friend there is tied to an oxygen, and because of pneumonia, damaged lungs from cigarette smoke, didn't help either, and emphysema, her doctor won't let her come down here without two of us with her to live. There's another one who lives in Southern California, and the fifth is in Arizona. She's an ex-nun who is a real character. Her idea of a good time is to traipse off to Egypt to explore the pyramids. I don't think she plans to risk getting shot by going there this year, but she's considering it. She also owns 10 or so cats, and Adam can't wait to meet her. The cats are all named after Egyptian gods, and I can't pronounce any of the names. Yes, I'm taking Adam, and we'll dump him off next door to Vancouver, where Robert and Yvonne live. Robert is planning on driving Adam to Seattle, well, train, for some space exhibit, as they share the interest. Adam will be occupied. It was an air museum, actually. 2 of the ladies still have husbands, except for the ex-nun, but the vow of chastity probably got dumped along the way. Well, she got married, obviously. We have known the guys for years, so everyone is okay with having them along. Martha and her new boyfriend are still going strong. We haven't decided it was to like him yet. He comes to dinner on Sundays, and Ian in the alternate Sunday, even though I said I wouldn't do that. Martha's always been able to talk me into anything, although I do hold out for a while on that one. At least you guys appear to have yours under control. And now you know the news. Stay tuned. It's over. We could have finished that in 2 minutes. Oh well. Well, this one is Marge. Well, Marge, here's hoping that you were off to a nice trip to celebrate your birthday. Or perhaps you are somewhere on the Lornley. Your sailboat sounds wonderful. I'm glad that you fulfilled a dream. I've lost track of how old you girls are. Maybe I don't want to know. Realizing that my 3 stepchildren are over 60 now was depressing enough. I think that I'm in pretty good health for 75. My fasting glucose was 104, so I'm trying to be more selective in my food choices in order to avoid diabetes. The rest of the blood work was fine. I celebrated my 75th, where else? A casino. Then Dan and family had a barbecue dinner, waiting for me while I got home. Eat your heart out, that was in February, when you were probably shoveling snow. I don't remember whether your necklace helped the trip. Should be nieces? Oh, a necklace, yeah. I don't remember whether your necklace helped that trip. I either wear it or it's in my pocket for luck when I gamble. So know that you are in my thoughts several times a year, and other times, too. So that necklace in the jewelry box is from Marjorie, in case you want to know what that is. Dan made a big deal of the century mark birthday as well. He and 7 buddies went to Vegas, and I was really surprised that Pam allowed it. And then to go into talk about the car again. We don't need to go into that. Let's skip ahead. The air conditioning just broke, and that wasn't the first thing to go. Pam drives this Mercedes, but she doesn't share. For the car, air conditioning broke. She doesn't share the Mercedes. She was probably afraid to have to drive Donovan around in the Mercury while he was gone. She borrowed a car. Pam got a paid internship, and now has graduated. She beat out 40 other applicants, and there's a long commute involved, and Dan's Giants radio job is only 3, sometimes 4 days a week. So he's getting a taste of what being a house husband would be like. No, they can't afford to get married yet. And that's just watching Donovan. And I doubt that his day involved any cooking or cleaning. Such as he loves Donovan, Dan does not find that easy duty. He doesn't get much sympathy from us. And before you know it, he's on Martha's doorstep to visit. Translate. The kid's driving me nuts. Can you watch it? Donovan is very active and doesn't sleep much during the day. One of these days I will remember to hide the cat food, at least. As to mention cat litter. This seems to be the things he heads for. I don't always think of this when Dan just shows up unexpectedly. My new name is Gigi. There's Gigi. There's where that name comes from. My grandpa, and Martha is, of course, grandma. So this is where Gigi comes from. This episode, that's where Gigi comes from. Dan's work days are on Monday, Friday, and Sunday, and Martha has Monday off, so she watches Donovan. Pam's mother covers Fridays. They consider me too old to babysit, thank God. Anyway, I made it clear that I wasn't going to babysit long before Donovan was born. Of course, I play with him once when he's here, when Dan gets a little break. Back to the trip. There's no transition there, so I put it there. We chose Portland because my friend Casey lives there and is dependent on an oxygen canister from prior pneumonia, not to mention other things, and her doctor won't let her travel. Okay, that's just it. And then they mention the Egyptian cat lover friend. She's not Egyptian. She just likes Egypt, and we've been there. So we're good. Robert and Yvonne Vancouver, as you said that in the other letter. I don't need to say that here. So I'm skipping ahead. She's gonna meet with her friends. I'm gonna meet with friends, and then I'm gonna go hang out with Robert, the train, up to the train, the plane, Boeing plant. That's the Boeing plant where the infamous man went to, by the way. I know what I said, that's been okay, that Dorothy never writes, but I'm beginning to have second thoughts about long letters to her anymore. I'm really quite busy, and I'm not sure at my age how much time and energy I should invest in a totally one-sided relationship. I will send her a card, though, by now, and also a tick that I never hear from Josh and his wife, and then I went to the trouble of sending them a personalized, our first Christmas together ornament last year. I have not mentioned this to Rose, and I don't hold her responsible for her grown children's manners or lack thereof. I know it's not fair to tie this all together, but it certainly has put me in a why should I bother frame. I suspect that Pam and Dan weren't too great on the thank you notes after the baby shower, and Donovan either. They probably did them by email, which is too damn efficient and shouldn't count. Donovan's first birthday party will be held here because I have the biggest backyard. I considered birthday parties for 1-year-olds ridiculous and just an excuse for a party, but they begged, and I said I wouldn't need simply a thing except for the house. Okay, wait, I'm gonna read that again. Donovan's first birthday party will be held here because I have the biggest backyard. I consider birthday parties for 1-year-olds ridiculous and just an excuse for a party, but they begged and said I won't need to supply a thing except the house. I think they screwed up having it July 4th weekend, when many people are out of town. But it's fine with me and probably the neighbors. The crowd is small. I wish I could go to a casino instead, but I don't want to start any family feuds, and also, I don't like to travel on holiday weekends. I don't recall whether I sent you this clipping of Uncle Bob. It's a terrible picture, but at least it's recognizable, even though Adam said, gee, why didn't they take a picture from when he was well? Yeah, why didn't they? You can still see that picture. You can go to the Barbara Lee Senior Center in Milpitas Boulevard, go in the lobby. It's up far on the right. It is a decrepit picture of Dad in a little western tie. It's horrible. It's still there. Although I know there's been almost everybody in the mural, I have to look many of them up in the key to find out who they're supposed to be. That's because they didn't look like them. They screwed up. It was almost an AI, but before AI. Lousy artist or not, it's still an honor, and we are happy to have it up there. The many glass doors to the senior center for everyone to remember. I just hope that things are still going great with all your boys. I'm so impressed that you can add exchange students to your already busy life. You're certainly doing your part to help improve the world. You have a lot of your mother in you. Since June, she's been on my mind. Say hello to your dad and Martha for me. His Martha. There's another Martha, and then married Uncle Bill. There's another Martha, his second wife. Uncle Bill. That's another Martha. There's like three. There's three in here. It's really confusing. There's 3 Jans, 3 Marys. 3 Jeans and Jans and Jeanettes and Martha.
Dear Jan. Anyway, Jan Cordine or Modinsky. Dear Jan. Anyway, Jan Codine Borzinski and I have stayed friends throughout the years. I was her maid of honor. We would write long Christmas catch-up letters and a rare between Christmas letter. This was a significant happening in either of our lives. She lives in Boulder with her husband George. I used to date one of George's buddies in ancient times. Jan and I were also high school classmates, but in opposite cliques, and there was a lot of gossip about how our being roommates would never work out, despite the nuns thinking it was good to pair us, since we came from the same high school. Jan and I agreed to give it a try. It more than worked out. She's a very dear person, sweet and patient, just like you. Anyway, when she wrote Christmas, she mentioned being under the weather and having some tests done. I kept meaning to get back to her, at least to ask how the testing went, and finally did so, because I got the idea to ask her if she wanted to come over to our Portland reunion next month. Despite being in opposite cliques, the gals I had in the reunion were all be like Janice. George's family live in Southern California, and while she's never visited here, I thought the thing might work out if they were going to see her folks in the summer, and they sometimes did in the past. So I finally got the letter out, which profuse apologies for not having written someone sooner. So I finally got the letter out, with profuse apologies for not having written it sooner. He asked me to phone her, and I did, and we have never really chatted on the phone before, but she is so gracious that it wasn't even an awkward conversation. She'd written me several times when Bob was sick and afterward. We both commented how strange it was that neither of us thought to pick up the phone, despite out 50-plus years of friendship. Because I don't hear well, just never developed a phone person. Which I know used to frustrate your mom, because she loved to talk on the phone. Having to ask people to repeat things tends to take some of the fun out of phoning. Phil has strep throat this week, and Martha had to work. She took one day off for him, so I had to take care of him, with my fingers crossed about getting it. Both Martha and Adam developed sore throats with white patches, but the cultures were negative. So far, it's good on me. So far, so good on me. Philip is fine now. Martha wasn't going to take Phil in because his fever was low grade, but I told her I once had it with no fever, so thank goodness she listened to me. How is Brendan's romance going? I was thinking of him today and wondering if his commute will be screwed up because of Carmagun. They had to close Freeway 405 for repairs, and it affected a lot of the whole state. I like freeways, but I'm absolutely never driving in the LA. Doesn't matter. I'm not looking forward to the long drive to Yvonne's on August 13th for our mini reunion in Portland. It's about 700 miles. No way am I driving straight through. Prius is easy on gas, at least. There are 3 mountain ranges to go over, but I've done it before a few times. I can't believe we did that. Plane fare is just too expensive for both me and Adam, and also I would have to rent a car, because my stepchildren, Robert and Yvonne, living next door in Vancouver, would insist on meeting us at the airport, and I don't like the way either of them drive. Yvonne just went back to work after a year off. Part of it was for falling asleep at the wheel and cracking her neck, and Robert drives too fast. Adam is not really a backup driver, but he could pull the car off the road and summon help if he got in trouble. As it is, Robert wants to take Adam to some space event in Seattle, which I'm busy at the reunion. It's nice of him, but both Adam and I gulped at the offers. Adam doesn't like his driving either. But he had decided to take the chance, as they both have a love of space stuff in common and a decent relationship with each other. Just started to develop in recent years, and Adam doesn't want to blow it. All of the kids had been of the opinion that Adam's problems were my fault for spoiling him. Only after he was diagnosed with autism did they give him a little rope. I did worry about what will happen when Adam, after I die. Even Dan isn't very nice to him, after all. And the help that he needed from me. It's kind of sibling rivalry thing. Yeah, he was like a brother. And we practically raised Danny. Danny's trying to be more understanding, because it's the one thing that I really want from him. But he has a short fuse and little patience. Mostly he ignores Adam, but I have told him that it's not acceptable to me either. Yvonne treats him very well. She always has. Plus, she has her own son, John, with problems. I think John is also autistic, but he refuses to deal with it. She would even take Adam to live with her, but I'm in better health than she is, so it's probably not a good solution. I have told Martha that I'm going to haunt her if she doesn't do right by Adam. It seems that when you're a family, there's always some problem. There's the good with taking the good with the bad.
Moni, you've been on my mind, especially this week, as we're packing to go to Vancouver, and we'll be spending some time with Yvonne and Robert. I wish you were going too. The problem is, we have so many things that have been getting in the way of my packing that it's reaching crisis level. I even started this letter to you last night, but the printer wouldn't print, and I couldn't spare the time on a letter that wasn't going to get printed. The morning I remembered that I could transfer this to Adam's printer, and will do so if he can't fix my printer. Another thing, between today and August 22nd, you will receive a package from HSN. It is just a little something. As I was watching the TV while eating my breakfast, they had an item that reminded me so much of you, and it was on sale, so coupled with the fact that I was determined for you to get a catch-up letter, despite the packing urgency, I've decided to just do it before I did today's lengthy to-do list. I realize that we can't do Christmas and birthday gifts, but sometimes an item just speaks to you. That's the time you sent Dad that miniature banjo, which he loved. By the way, I still have that. Yeah, it's in the archive box. By the way, it is part of the permanent display we have in his honor, the fireplace. That's in a red box. Here, let me take a look. Along with the flag from the funeral. Dan bought a nice wooden display case for it. A miniature B-22 airplane, his Harvey medals, an engraved plot from his sister, and a little political stuff. Not that we need these reminders to remember him, but they make us feel better. I have scheduled it late because I was going to meet Martha and John in Vegas, mid-September. But of course, this is down the tubes now. The friend, Janice Morzinski, is another gentle, laid-back soul. I've never seen her angry either, which could be bad, because if you recall that saying, the more you complain, the longer God lets you live, which I think is true. So I should live to be 120. But at least they're getting the second opinion, so maybe they're fighting back a little. I read a study that fighting lasts longer. Fighting. And Casey had a mild heart attack. The main purpose of the trip is a mini reunion of 5 of us from high school. We are meeting in Portland because Casey is tied to oxygen and can't travel far. I am driving as my wheels and rental cars are too expensive. Robert is taking Adam by train to Seattle while I'm at the reunion, so he decided to go to train. Probably for the best that he didn't drive that. Martha is getting laid off at the end of the month. There's enough bad news for now, although I'm sure I could find more if I thought about it longer. And the last line on that one is, how's Ariel? I bet you guys are getting too excited. Donovan has added so much to our lives, and I'm sure that your grandchild will too. We will be waiting for word. Write or call or tell you about the trip after we get back. That was honest. All right. Janice, I hope you have received some pictures on the computer by now. I have not, so perhaps the others so far behind in their unpacking as I am. I can't believe that I've been home a week and a half, and so little accomplished. Dan and Pam stayed here while we were away, so I'm doing a lot of searching for things, as happens when people don't know where things go. I'm pretty sure they had a party while we were away, as evidenced by several beer caps in the pile of yard clippings that I raked up in the backyard. But there was no major damage, and no neighbors phoned to complain about any noise. So I can't complain about the house sitters. We had a good time in Portland. The hotel that we stayed at is called the Kennedy School, not John, another Kennedy, from the early 1900s. It's located in an old neighborhood, and the houses reminded me a lot of West Duluth, except with better paint. I didn't know what the current word for yuppie is, but that describes it. Yuppie? Let's see, they're Victorians. I saw them. It's Casey's neighborhood. The streets are narrow as they were built for horse and carriage. Some of the homes were converted to overpriced little restaurants. They only accommodate a few people. One night we had to wait an hour with reservations because the place couldn't accommodate 2 groups their size. And the people who had the big table were taking their time. Yeah, as an aside, I would say they were in the Baroque Bohemian style with a little Gothic thrown in there. Definitely Victorian era houses. Ironically, Victorian era houses. They weren't. Yeah. It's in the name. It's right there. I guess when you're right there, you don't notice. Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. Oh yeah, the Baroque style. A little bohemian. It wasn't yuppie. It wouldn't be yuppie. It would be like 1900s. Yuppie at all. Yuppies 80s X generation people. It's more like Lost Generation stuff, Grandma Nap stuff. Anyway, so yeah, back to the story. It's Casey's neighborhood. The streets are narrow as they were built for horse and carriage. Some of the homes were converted to overpriced little restaurants that only accommodate a few people. One night we had to wait an hour, even with reservations, because the place couldn't accommodate two groups our size, and the people at the big table were taking their time. Most meals we took at the Kennedy School because the food was excellent, and we were already there, so didn't need a designated driver. The hotel rooms had the original blackboards with a big welcome sign written in chalk. There was no TV, which made Jean unhappy, because that's how she goes to sleep, and she figured they charged enough for at least to have a TV, close to $150 a night. When Peter Tobias booked us all in rooms for 5 nights, my budget and I balked. I ended up staying choosing the nights when our planned tours took us into dark. I have cataracts now and don't drive after dark. I will get the first one fixed September 8th. So 2 nights I stayed with Casey and one with Robert and Yvonne. Their house turned out to be 20 miles away at good traffic times. By the way, my particular eye condition, I cannot get cataract surgery. It screwed up even more. So, yeah. That's lovely. Oh, Mom, she had the cataract surgery. She still couldn't see. It didn't work. The lack of TV didn't turn out to be a problem, as we crammed so much into each day that even Jean was zonked out as soon as we had met Pillow. One night we got brave enough, or perhaps drunk enough, to finally ask Jean why she left the convent after 23 years. She replied that they wouldn't let her buy a house. I said that perhaps that had something to do with a vow of poverty. She just laughed. I gathered that she had wanted the house for a good cause. She was teaching the Indians in Arizona, or something of that nature. This is conjecture, but I recall that her dad was a banker, and left her quite a bit of money, which she must have decided not to share with the Benedictines. I didn't know it before Jean told me that she had a brother with Asperger's, so she wanted to meet Adam, and Adam wanted to meet anybody with 10 cats. So the last morning I brought Adam to breakfast. Of course, the Tobiases and the Barretts already knew him. It wasn't long before Jan and Adam were in rapt conversation about cats and Egypt. That's Jean's second love. All of her cats have unpronounceable Egyptian names. To my amazement, Adam knew quite a lot about Egypt, thanks to the History Channel. So they hit it off very well, and are now swapping cat pictures over the internet. Well, that was like twice, but okay. Anyway, Pete and Kathy stayed another day after Jean went home, and I went to Yvonne and Robert's. Mary, Jean, and Tom stayed a few more days, as they had other people to visit in the area. Tom Barrett is a great guy, every bit as nice as Peter, and that's saying something. He seems devoted to Mary Jean, and they have no kids. They do a lot of traveling. The two men added a lot to the get-together, and just drove us up with good humor everywhere we wanted to go. I can't say the drive home was boring. Going around the curves of 3 mountain ranges would keep anyone awake, but Adam was proofreading his great American novel. He insists on writing fiction, even though character development is hard for anybody, let alone a person with Asperger's, in which case empathy and reading body language are special problems. Actually, he's not a bad article writer. Anyway, Adam was concentrating so I couldn't have the radio on, and all I could do was look at the trees. I don't want to see another pine tree before Christmas Eve. I did manage to entice him from the car, the promise of food, and a 2-hour-long casino trip stop. They were fun and a nice break. Hey, George, I had a royal flush dealt to me. The bad news is I was playing nickels at the time. Still, 200 is 200. Of course, a dealt royal doesn't beat that sequential royal flush you got once. I'm still in awe, and I think of you two every time I pass a sequential machine. I pass them, but I don't play them, because nobody ever gets sequential royals, except you. I'm sorry that I didn't save the card for Casey to sign before I mailed it. But we got here taking one morning at breakfast about you and George and the good times we had together. Casey hadn't joined us because we had worn her out the night before with a long dinner. Getting around is tough for her. Her portable oxygen tank is only good for 3 hours, before she has to go home and fill it. I was incorrect in my assumption diagnosis. She had emphysema, not the residual effects of pneumonia, as I had thought. Casey just joined us for most meals. She doesn't have the energy for excursions. Casey's son David is in Iraq, flying airplanes for contractors. Laid back as always, she's not worried about him. I would be a basket case. Her other son, Michael, lives close by with his wife and 12-year-old daughter, Sheena. That made up the name in case you've never heard it before. Oh, it's not a made-up name. Sheena's not. Anyway, Casey said that Michael has never forgiven her for giving him such a common name. In fact, he now spells it Michael with a Y. His wife is an artist. Everything fits somehow. Both have some chemo that wasn't really chemo. Should I get his medical records and research that for you? It also didn't make him sick. Have you been to Denver yet? I hope that Mary Ann and family enjoyed their Alaskan tour. I'm so happy to hear your handwriting on the letter because it meant that you were feeling stronger. And that's the news from here for now. Dee Dee. On a happier note, the mini reunion in Portland was great. We stayed at a hotel that was a converted high school. The blackboards are still up in the bedrooms, with welcome written on them in chalk. In the picture, the gal on the left lies over about half an hour from me in Sunnyvale, where I used to work. The second one lives in Portland. The middle one is the ex-nun, and the one on my shoulder lives in Southern California. We didn't get kicked out of even one restaurant when, after a third bottle of wine, we broke out into our Stanbrook Hall school song. At first, we all grew too far to don our old uniforms. No doubt you can still fit your old school sweatshirt, but I love you anyway. One night, I had enough wine courage to finally ask Jean, the ex-nun, why she left the convent after 23 years. So none of us ever heard why, and were too polite to probe until the wine. She said they wouldn't let her buy a house after her dad left her the money to do so. I said, well, half them might have had something to do with that vow of poverty or something. She just laughed. I don't really have any specifics, but it was teaching poor Indians in Arizona, and I think the house had something to do with them. She still has many friends at the college. In fact, they're going to Duluth on the 22nd and usually stays at Scholastica. She wanted me to join her if it weren't for the cataract surgery. I might have, but perhaps I would take you up on your room offer. Sleeping in a nun's cell is not on my bucket list. If you don't see the movie The Bucket List with Jack Nicholson, you have got to rent it. That is a cute movie. It's messed up. It's cute. It's kind of sad, though. I do remember the movie. It was good to see Yvonne and Robert, too. Robert took Adam to Seattle on a train while I was at the reunion. Yvonne couldn't get much time off, so she's lucky that they took her back on the job. We're waiting to hear from New Jersey. Ramona's older daughter is going to have a baby girl with a due date of October the 2nd. She's dating the father, but I guess nobody gets married anymore. She said she doesn't know him well enough to marry him. Whoa, drama. But that's so back east. In an odd way, I guess that makes sense. Anyhow, I'm sure the child will not be deprived of much, and I hope she brings them as much joy as Donovan has brought us, the other grandchild. He is walking now and leaving a path of destruction everywhere he goes, starting with the cat's litter box, if I forget to transfer it into the shower. Closing both the shower and bathroom doors usually slows him down enough for one of us to catch up with him before he snacks on the cat litter. I hope everything is going fine with you and yours. Hi to Donald. Love, Victoria. All right. This is Catherine Michelle, the Vicky. Tomorrow I will mail your Portland disc and the cat information for Adam, with a disc of all of their pictures. Please tell him to expect all 10 of my cats, one grand cat and a lot of Egyptian cats, complete biographies, and a crash course in Egyptology 101. But tell him that there will be no quiz given on the material. However, I do expect a correct pronunciation of Hatshepsut. It is 3 English words, hat, ship, and soot. I expected to have this out sooner, but with the weird weather we have been having, we have been 4 times without electricity during the last 2 weeks, one day for quite a few hours. I've been lucky as 5 years ago I had the beginning of one, but each time I have my eyes examined, it's referring to eye surgery. It seems that the same stage is not getting worse. I had a scare a few months ago when I had my eyes examined and what appeared to be a tumor was discovered. On further examination, it proved not to be a tumor, but an area of scar tissue from ruptured blood vessels. This was probably caused by a fall in January 2010, when I tripped, fell forward, and slammed my head against the concrete edge of the driveway. Yes, she did a faceplant. It's messed up. It doesn't say that, but that's what happened. When I could get up, I went directly to the doctor, because I had been warned about falling and internal bleeding. And I'm on Coumadin. This is the girl writing, the lady writing letter. Elder lady writing it in her 70s. Both eyes were bright red, and I had a bump on my forehead. And my glasses being rammed into my face caused 2 black eyes, but other than that, I seemed to be fine and didn't even have a headache, and left for Egypt 3 days later looking like a raccoon. But now it seems I have a large scar area in my eye, which doesn't seem to do any damage or have any effect on my vision, so I guess I was very lucky that the internal bleeding stopped when it did before more damage was done. The only good thing about this was that the accident prompted me to get the medical alert system, so around my neck whenever I go outside, and also have a call button hanging in the shower. I wish Casey would get one of those, but she seems adverse to the idea. We're all that age when anything can happen, and in some cases it usually does, especially for us who live alone. Mary Jean and Tom are heading for Flagstaff for an astronomy session, as they are interested in astronomy. They will be with someone near a very powerful telescope. They will be there when I'm in Duluth. I do wish they were closer, as it would be fun to get together with telescopes and search for deep sky objects. My friend Liz, who is a real expert in finding anything with the telescope, and I are usually the only ones who are interested in going out. I do have a few friends who are willing to go out and camp in the desert, but are more interested in the food and the campfire than viewing Messier objects. That Messier is a space object. It's one of the space Messier catalog. Yeah. It's a funny word, but yeah, that's what it is. Life is good. I finally go swimming today and plan on going again tomorrow. Weather is wonderful. Cool with highs only in the 90s and nights in the 70s, although sweater. And to Anne. Adam showed me how to make the print big on the computer, so perhaps you can read this more easily. It should be a big improvement over my handwriting. Danny recovered okay from passing his kidney stone. In fact, he went to work the very next day, despite my telling him not to. But he needed the money for a trip to visit a friend in Southern California the weekend, which is where he's now. Since he doesn't get paid when he's not working, he just had to grin and bear it, although it was a rough day for him, and we were all worried about his going back to work too soon after passing a kidney stone. It has been very hot all week, and I'm glad that I have air conditioning put in when I had to replace their furnace 2 years ago. It was expensive, but the new furnace is more efficient, and my utility bills are actually smaller than they were. I wish I could afford solar, which would really reduce the bills. When I take Danny to the train, we pass right by the solar company Solyndra, which is in the news so much recently, because they lied to get a $500 million government loan and then went bankrupt 6 weeks later. And Fremont, where Solyndra is located, is the city that is right to the north of Milpitas. There was somebody at the church that worked at Solyndra, complaining they got laid off. Yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Is the husband of an ex-Jung Swan student, actually. Revealed that she was the ex-Jung Swan student, like, a little later. Like, I kind of knew, but I kind of didn't. Anyway, this is aside, yeah. She's like, yeah, I'm that, yeah, girl you like the day. But yeah, so anyway, so we have, back to the letter. I will be sending you positive thoughts Wednesday when you get your new pacemaker. She's writing to Aunt Anne about a pacemaker. Yeah, new pacemaker. June and Donald are nice enough to keep me up to date on things going on there. I hope that one of them will let me know when you are fully charged again. I am making a short trip to Las Vegas October the 3rd because Bob's favorite niece Judy will be there for a couple of days. Her husband's son is getting married in Arizona, so they thought they would make a side trip. I have more pictures just sent to me from the trip to Portland, but Adam's printer needs ink. The pictures are on a CD, so I will try to get them ready for the next time I write. I have a good crop of tomatoes this year. I wish I could mail you some. It's the only thing that I planted except for a couple of zucchini plants, which I haven't had luck for years. They blossom, the zucchini starts, and then most of them shrivel up. We've only been able to eat 2 of them so far. Aunt Anne again. The picture is of what we 3 were in high school. The one on the left in the bottom picture, Jean. The one was a nun for the other one's a nun for 23 years. The one on the right is Casey, the one who lives in Portland and must take her oxygen tank wherever she goes, as she has emphysema from smoking. Her dad had died of emphysema from smoking, when we were in high school. She is very smart in all other areas except that one, you might say. My Las Vegas trip was great. Bob's niece Judy and her husband Ken are lots of fun. I even won enough money to pay all the expenses. Marjorie Ryan had given me a necklace for Christmas. She called it my lucky gambling necklace. Let me read that again because that paragraph's weird. Okay. Marjorie Ryan had given me a necklace on Christmas. She called it my lucky gambling necklace, and it seems that when I remember to put it in my pocket, I win. Not 100% of the time, but often enough that I take it along. I am always interested in the World Series, even if the Giants aren't in it. I was glad that the Yankees lost out last night. I hope that either Milwaukee or Detroit wins in the same old teams. Anyway, and the same old teams always seem to win. Except, of course, last year when the Giants won after a long dry spell. Bob's sister Martha is getting more forgetful, and her husband John is trying to take care of her. They really should sell the house and go into assisted living, but they're being really stubborn about it. There will come a point when John won't be well enough to care for Martha, and he won't face it now, while he still has time to make other arrangements. While we were in Vegas, Judy was on the phone a lot back to Chicago because her cat was also sick. She had a neighbor taking care of it, and they evidently had to rush it to the vet. It wasn't eating or peeing. I just realized that she will have to have the cat put to sleep eventually, and she wants to be there when it happens, and she has the cat for over 10 years. Adam is pretty attached to his cats also, but I told them that if they get some expensive disease, get ready for a replacement. I wonder what the Farmer's Almanac says about weather in Duluth this fall and winter. and I'd love to come and see you, but I've never driven on snow. I'm a little afraid of it. Next Wednesday, I got the other eye done. I can see great out of the one that they fixed.
So you thought she was Aunt because she was really sick or something. Aunt Anne. It's time of year again. It's that time of year again. I also tell people how you used to dress up and go trick-or-treating with us when we were kids. You got by with it because we were short. We're such good memories. These days, I'm not fond of Halloween. Adam and the family usually have some place to go, and I'm stuck answering the doorbell by myself. We get quite a few kids. This year I might have help, as Philip wants to have a haunted house here, like I once told him we had in Sioux City when Bob and I first married. We were living in a 3-story farmhouse, and it was perfect to be a haunted house. It had narrow staircases and lots of dark corners. Bob had a PA system set up with spooky music and sinister laughter. We had body parts table with cold spaghetti for guts and peeled grapes for eyeballs, and dishes of bones and a fake amputated hand on a plate. And of course, everyone wanted to be scared, so they used their imagination. Some kids took off screaming. Philip had heard all this from Robert, Yvonne, and Ramona, so now he wanted to do something similar. Unfortunately, I had promised him he could before I knew I had the cataract surgery. Danny, who wanted the haunted house also, was going to help a lot, but he had to work that night. Philip is very disappointed, so we will have to do a little something not as big as was originally planned. Perhaps it will work out better next year. Tell both Don and Ron happy birthday again for me. I sent cards, but I was only guessing as to which day in October was Ron's birthday. Anyway, I got the month right. I'm impressed that your room is 77. Should give them to paint another 7 on it. 777 is very lucky, and without you will recover faster. I was lucky in Vegas. I was playing quarters, and I had a royal flush dealt to me. The same thing happened on the way back from Portland. I was only playing nickels. Now I won 200. That time it was 1,000. But it's hard enough to get a royal flush. Having dealt you was just unheard of. Having 2 times is just off the charts. The odds must be astronomical. I got one of those twice. Yeah, well, it's very similar too. There was like a nickel machine. It was Dirty Royal, and then there was quarter machine was Dirty Royal. That one was more. That was exciting. Many years ago. Okay, now it says Ramona's daughter had a baby girl. I'll tell you the name next letter. So weird. I forgot it. Something like Harley. That's what it is. The middle name is Ava, and it's normal enough for me to remember it, especially since Yvonne also has a granddaughter named Ava. Did I tell you that my new name around here is Gigi? That stands for great grandma. There are enough run-of-the-mill grandmothers out there for me to be renamed. Ramona's daughter is still single, although she gave the baby the father's last name. I guess people don't get married anymore. Ariel may marry him, though, unlike Martha, who wouldn't even give Danny Joe's name. So yeah, there's a previous Daniel, the oldest son, his father's out of the picture. Yeah, his father's out of the picture.
Dear Janice and Tom, are you bracing yourself for the little spooks? I like Halloween, except for having to get the doors off. The family usually volunteers for the event and have their church supposed to keep the urchins off the street. I guess it works somewhere because last year they didn't have the party on Halloween itself. Duh. And there were lots more kids at the door. I do decorate somewhat, mostly inside, but nothing like Dee Dee Campanero. Hers is on the scale of people who enter Christmas contests. You can check it out if you are in the vicinity of... It gives the address in Duluth. I'm not going to give the address. At my door I have a skull in a cage. It is motion detected and makes sinister sounds whenever anyone approaches the door. Do we still have that, or do we throw that out? We still have that. We just threw out the snake this year. It got all gross. It was left out in the rain. The snake from 2010. Anyway, it got all gross. Yeah. I'm approaching the front door. At my door, I have a skull in a cage that is motion detecting and makes sinister sounds whenever anyone approaches the front door. I think it's driving my neighbors crazy, especially on Sundays when the family is here and there's a lot of going on in and out and Martha's kids. I should drop Dee Dee a card since Halloween is so big in her life, but she's in line behind you, and I'm not sure that even this letter will get there before Halloween. Anne is always in my thoughts, but especially on Halloween, as being short, she used to dress up and go trick-or-treating with us, me and Roseanne. That's her sister. She got a big kick out of it. It's funny the things that stand in from your childhood. No. She got a big kick out of it. It's funny the things that stand out from your childhood. Subsequently, I've always written her around Halloween the card that I did manage to get out already. I'm in the process of trying to finance. We didn't care about that. Let's skip that. Thank you for the updates on your visits, although they do make me feel sad, and may kick myself that I didn't manage to bit it better so that I could get there when I wanted to go. Like for your mother. On a trip, and I could afford to take. I went to see Bob's niece and her husband while they're so close. We had a fabulous time. They just left me the night to go back to their hotel. Judy had been using my cell phone all night because hers was low on minutes, and her cat was gravely ill in Elgin. She had made lots of calls to the cat sitter and vet and ran down her minutes. But then the royal happened, and I called her cell anyway instead of hello, and she yelled, "You got a royal?" We always call each other when we get royals, and she knew it had to be either that or a heart attack, and why not be optimistic? Perhaps I told you already, but also a royal was dealt to me on the way back from Portland, although that was nickels instead of quarters. Still, I didn't turn down the 200. Speaking of Portland and a mini reunion with my friends from high school, one of them lives... I don't usually like much related to Texas, but I decided to root for the Rangers because I detest Tommy La Russa. Ever since I read an article about how he will have nothing to do with his daughters by his first marriage, even though they want a relationship. That might be unfair, as there might be a little beeps, but I'm a family person. It's hard to picture any reason to cut off your kids. That's why I find a reason to choose between two teams that I didn't like or watch the World Series, and I love the World Series. If the Yankees ever play the Dodgers, I will have a big problem. I hope that John is doing better. Hi to all. And Halloween night. Oh boy. Anne, happy Halloween! It's especially thinking of you tonight and the many Halloweens you made special for me and Roseanne by going trick-or-treating with us. As I feared, I will have to get the door all by myself. The rest of the family has other plans. Sarah is in high school now, and they have something going on at school. Adam, Martha, and Philip will help at the church party. At least the party will keep some of the kids away from my house, my door. When I answer the bell, I will be wearing a witch's pointed hat with scraggly gray hair hanging out of it. Not evil enough to make anyone drop their candy and run away, but we do have a skull in a cage hanging on the porch light. It has a sensor that activates and makes scary sounds when everyone approaches the front door. I keep forgetting the skull is there and sometimes jump myself when I go in or out. We have postponed the haunted house for next year, but Philip wants to go to the Halloween store tomorrow morning when things are half price to get some things for next year's haunted house. If it weren't for school, he'd love to come along, but he's afraid that if we wait until school, nothing good will be left. I think he's right. I'll have to see today whether the store opens so that I can be there early. If Philip had his way, he would want me to camp out overnight and be first in line. Martha's boyfriend Jim was here for dinner last night. One Sunday night dinner. She brings Jim to the next Sunday Ian comes. On Sarah's birthday, they were both here, and I was a little uncomfortable with that. But nobody hit anybody. I suppose Thanksgiving and Christmas will be a juggling act. With two guys, although they're finally in the area, so hopefully we'll have to do some holiday stuff with him. He also has a 16-year-old daughter. Ian is alone, so I suspect he will expect to come to everything. We'll have to see if it plays out. Dan and Pam are moving into their first apartment this week. They have a 6-month lease. They are very excited about the idea, but I'm worried that they can't afford it. Pam gets paid from her internship, although I'm not sure how long that lasts. Dan's job is part-time, and some of the guys at work are jealous because he got picked to be the radio thing, and they aren't very smooth there. So who knows how long he'll have that job. Some of those guys have been there longer than Dan, although it's going on 3 years for him. 1 week he's encouraged that they might put him on a full-time with benefits, and the next week he wants to tell everybody to shove it because of the stress and politics at work. Dan has a short fuse, but I hope he can hang out there. Hang in there. It's too bad Texas lost the World Series. I see Tony La Russa, the Cardinals manager. The Cardinals won the World Series. Is retiring today at age 67. Good riddance. I didn't know he was that old. He probably dyed his hair. But I did notice that his ass was flat once we were walking to the mound to put a new pitcher at, and it flashed through my mind that he was getting up there in age. As you can see, I'm not too old to recognize a good rear when I see one, especially now that I can see better. I'm also noticing marks on the wall and dust in the corners. Dear Aunt Anne, here are some Halloween pictures. Sarah went as Lady Gaga, an entertainer that she's crazy about. Don't ask me why. She and Martha even went to see a performance of Lady Gaga in San Jose last year. It cost a fortune to get in. I enclosed a couple of regular pictures of Sarah. You don't think she always looks like that. The group picture was supposed to have been a 4-generation picture, but Sarah wanted to be in it too. Halloween here wasn't bad to the door this year. I only had about 6 or 7 groups. We had a lot of candy left over. which I'm trying to stay away from. My blood work last June showed that I was pre-diabetic, and I cut way back on sugar and don't want to be diabetic. Next week, I have to have a root canal, and I'm not looking forward to it. I've had about 3 or 4 of those in the past, but lost 2 teeth later anyway. But not until 10 years after the root canals. The tooth is holding on for break, so I want to save it. Otherwise, I'll have to start saving for another implant. I do everything I can to save my teeth. Remember trying to talk to Roseanne out of having all of her teeth pulled and getting dentures, but she never listened to me about anything anyway. For sisters, we were quite different. I still miss her a lot, though. Philip liked my purchases at the after Halloween site. I bought a full-size plastic skeleton, a severed leg, a severed arm, and a huge plastic cobra snake. The thing I like best is my eyeball lamp. It is too hard to describe, so I'll have Adam take a picture for future reference. The best thing that was a 75% off the cost of a little over 3. The rest of the stuff was half priced, but you can't buy severed limbs just anywhere, so they're worth it. Dan is due over soon tomorrow to borrow Adam's truck. Today is moving day into their apartment. So what's kind of funny about that snake is, they just said that the snake, Janice, December. It is nice to get your letter. As you mentioned, it's nice to get real letters. I refuse to do my Christmas letters on email. I do appreciate email for quick messages, or for when there's a time factor. It certainly makes keeping in touch easier. I also get started for a second when I see essential health in the corner of the envelope. I think it's a bill that someone belatedly dredged up from one of Bob's treatments. That is until I recognize your handwriting, and then always so glad to hear from you. Personally, I liked St. Mary's better, but the world keeps changing no matter where I resist. Most of my family is wired up to an earplug, with a wire hanging out. I told them that if they use them at the table, I'm not feeding them. And I really can't stand the mention of Facebook. People can't seem to keep anything to themselves anymore. I regard it as a phony form of intimacy. Martha, for one, puts too much personal information on there. Adam always tells me I can't say anything or I'll get him in trouble. And I worry that it will get out to a potential employer. Well, just thinking about myself more than Martha. After all, she's a trained counselor, and she ought to know better. When I complain, she says that it's stuff that goes to her friends. Yeah, all 500 of them. And sometimes people just pretend to be your friend, until you learn better. Sounds like grade school stuff to me. Did I mention that Martha has been laid off for a couple of months? It took forever for her unemployment to kick in. Since today would have been Anne's birthday, I did email John, and I phoned Donald to see how they were doing. I had just phoned Ron Sunday, so I didn't call him. Donald told me that they took the ashes to Calvary today. Everyone seemed to have gotten through today okay. When I spoke to Ron, he told me that the food was really good. When I asked Don how Jeremy was doing, he said okay, whatever that means. I had caught them at dinner in a restaurant, so I didn't want to keep him on the phone for elaboration. I also thought Jeremy might have been there with them. After I signed that loan, they're still trying to pay off that loan. Okay, but skipping all the loan. So note that Aunt Anne died, and so we've kept the letters, the last 3 letters to Aunt Anne, but she probably didn't read them, those 3 letters. Aunt Anne died in late November there. It's December. Yeah, so there until a stroke. I think he had a stroke. Furthermore, in the culture, the venerable old people and fuss with me, like I'm a queen or something. Bob and I used to hate to get behind old people in the supermarket until we became them. These are the first dentists I've ever liked in my life, who haven't scared me with what they were up to. Well, they have all the good stuff. How could Anne have been in AFib for 50 days and nobody realized it? Is that place just a custodial hotel, or do they have nurses? Not that I know a lot about medical nursing anymore, but most facilities check vitals. None of Martha's 3 dogs have outfits. They're lucky they get food. People without children seem to fuss over the dogs. Misplaced maternal instinct. Pam's Conan got a lot more attention before Donovan was born. He's very protective of the baby, although still leery of any animals that... Conan is an English bulldog. I hope that your trip to California pans out. I guess it won't be too hot driving in summer out in October. If you end up going during the hot months, take Interstate 80. This is all. If I write in any more pages, you won't have enough time to put up your Christmas tree. And if you're even going to bother, since hopefully you will be gone for Christmas. I'm about to pull my artificial table model out of the box. It took me years to win the tabletop tree war around here. Started in 1984. I hope it's not too scraggly looking, because I knew if I buy a real one, we'll be back to the floor model again. After Christmas, I will look for a more respectable-looking fake tree, which is on sale. QVC has a really nice one last week, made by Beth and Show Lights, but that was before my loan cleared, and was afraid to charge anything. I'll skip that. Martha just phoned again, and she found Dan's wallet in her house. Hooray to everyone. I'm sorry that I didn't send Thanksgiving greetings to everyone, even though I had planned, and I had bought a few cards. Things were just too hectic. At least I'm getting a decent start on Christmas. Have a wonderful Christmas. Take pictures. P.S. Since the letterheads screwed up my pages and I've done some room, allow me to share with you something that Denise Judy from Chicago forwarded me. She sends me a lot of jokes. She sent a joke.
This is reference to Aunt Anne, I believe. I was their maid of honor when they married 54 years ago. The funeral is tomorrow in Boulder. I sent her flowers while she was still alive to enjoy them. Okay, she jumps right into this letter, and there's no context. I will give you it. Apparently, the nurse, the lady in Colorado, the nurse lady in Colorado has died. And George Morzinski, the Morzinski girl. She died. And George is still alive. So, George is the one with the fancy house, and the Colorado Shining Hotel is the other one. So, the Morzinskis. Jan Morzinski has died. One of the Jans. And one of the nurses from school. One of the Brat Pack has died. The original Brat Pack. This is during the she's died. Yeah, that's the joke. It's Brat Pack. One of the group has passed on. That's not funny. It's that it's called. Yeah. So basically, Mrs. Morzinski died, and she's writing to Dawn in June. Morzinski, they live in Colorado. So yeah, that's the context. But she just starts the letter without explaining the context at all. Yeah. One of her original pack. Yeah. I was their maid of honor when they married 54 years ago. The funeral's tomorrow in Boulder. I sent her flowers when she was still alive to enjoy them. On a lighter note, I will see you next September. 2013 would be the 60th anniversary of our high school graduation class. A friend of mine is organizing it from Arizona. She chose, and all of us agreed so far, to get together. It would be the start of our senior year in 2012, before any more of us get too decrepit to travel. I did get my refinance loan, and we will skip that part. It's not my nature to nose a mess. So we have to team up. I took my fake tree out of the box, and it looks pathetic. So I guess Adam and I will have to go out and get a real one today. After years and years, I finally was able to talk everyone into a tabletop tree. I do not like decorating Christmas trees. So after Christmas, I will get a half-priced good one. It's artificial, because I like the lights go on. That's the lights that go on as soon as you... I do not like decorating Christmas trees. So after Christmas, I will have a half-priced good one. An artificial one, because I like the lights when they go on as soon as you plug it in. And they're less of a fire hazard. I knew that the fresh ones smell better, but you can't have all your needs met in one Christmas tree. Just started my cards, and I'm behind just started my cards, and I'm behind in almost every other department related to Christmas. But I think this happens every year, as I forget the hassle of the previous year. It's like childbirth. They give you drugs that affect your memory, or every household would have exactly one child. Perhaps we'd have Christmas only once each decade. The part I do enjoy is hearing from people and saying hello. Perhaps we'd have Christmas only once each decade. The part I do enjoy is hearing from people and saying hello. So hello and Merry Christmas. I put in a request that the new year be kinder to us all. 23.
Diane, I hope this holiday season finds things going on well for you and your family. The year for us has been filled with highs and lows. The last month I had lost a dear aunt, Duluth, my mother's younger sister, of a stroke. And just last week, a close friend, she was my roommate in nurses training. She and her husband, George, lived in Boulder, Colorado. I was their maid of honor when they got married. You may remember Bill Slack and his brother, Gary, from Pennsylvania, who visited your folks a few times back in my dating years. George is Bill's best friend in the Air Force. One of the good parts of the year included a mini reunion last August in Portland, and 4 of the women that I went to high school with. We were all in the same clique and kept track of each other over the years. Janice would have attended had she hadn't been sick, and I also knew her from high school. She ran with a different group then, a sort of a rival group. So when the nuns assigned us to the same room, we were a little leery of the arrangement, but agreed to try it. They were assigned together in the same room. The friendship lasted about 60 years. She was easy to live with. We had such a good time in Portland that we decided to plan a 60th high school reunion in Duluth next September for the whole class. Technically, this September will be the 59th year since graduation, but we've been entering as seniors as we figure that our ages, truly seniors, are close enough that we'd better not delay before anyone else got sick or too decrepit to travel. Adam and I had driven to Portland about 700 miles. Well, she drove. My stepchildren, Yvonne and Robert, live in the city next door, Vancouver, Washington, and Robert took Adam by train to Seattle to keep him busy while I was at the reunion. Then I stayed a few days after the reunion for some family time. I'm still pretty close with Bob's 3 kids. Ramona lives in New Jersey, so I get to go see her when she visits for a couple of years. I thought the relationships might change after Bob died. We seem to have grown closer, and they are a little protective of me. Each of them is a grandparent. When your kids become grandparents, you really start to feel old. My new name around here is Gigi. Stands for great-grandmother, in order to differentiate me from all of the run-of-the-mill grandmothers running around in the family. The local family is doing okay, although Martha did get divorced. Final this month, and she has a new boyfriend. He was not in the picture when she filed, and we have a regular Sunday dinner, as we have for years, except for on Sunday. She brings this Jim over, and we have alternate on Sundays. Soon-to-be ex-husband, Ian, joins us, and he can be with the kids on the weekend, and he doesn't have them. I know that it's kind of different to keep an ex-husband in the family, but it's better than some situations. I get a little anxious when both guys are here together, like at birthday parties. But Ian doesn't seem to mind. If he paid more attention, he probably would still be married to Martha. Instead, he was married to his job and never got home before 9:30 p.m. Sometimes he goes back to work after Sunday dinner also. She just got tired of being a single parent. They used a mediator for the divorce instead of a lawyer. Thank you for your emails. We are on the same page politically. I often forward them to a couple of cousins who feel the same way. I especially liked the green thing. December 11th again. Dear John and Marty, or John and Marty, it won't be the best of Christmases this year, but we'll get through it. Although, if I don't... It won't be the best of Christmases this year, but we'll get through it. Although, if I don't hurry up my cards, we'll miss it altogether. The tree stands with just lights on it, so far, thanks to Adam. Maybe the grandkids will trim it tonight after Sunday dinner. I have dinner every Sunday, right? Just like Grandma Leone did, except I only serve spaghetti once in a while. Martha brings her boyfriend on Sunday, and Ian comes to the alternate Sunday, which is the weekend, and he doesn't have the kids, so that he gets to see them each week. Their divorce is final this month. I didn't realize that you weren't working, Marty. He's referring to John's, Marty. His Marty, it's Martha. Martha was laid off also at the end of August. Enclosed are some catch-up pictures. Last August, I went to Portland for a mini reunion. 4 of my friends from high school. We had so much fun that we are now planning our 60th high school reunion in Duluth the last half of September. Okay. I think of you, John, when I walk by those tennis courts in Bob's Park. That was forever ago, but my long-term memory is better than my short. Don't ask me when I had you for breakfast yesterday. I can see great now that I have my cataracts fixed. Adam isn't happy about all of the times because now I can see spots on the wall or the baseboard that I missed before, and I'm not so good at being able to reach it. I no longer do ladders. So he has to get out the 409 and take care of them. Say hello to the girls for me. I'll see you next year. I hope it's better all around.
How can it possibly be Christmas again so soon? That you and your year was decent, and things have grown a little easier. There were lots of highs and lows here. I lost my dear Aunt Anne last month, my mother's younger sister. She was my chief reason for visiting Duluth. There was no funeral. I had my bag half packed to go after her stroke, but she went downhill suddenly, and I couldn't have made it in time. I still have cousins there, on both sides of the family, and Roseanne's girls, so I know that I'll go back, this year for sure in late December, for our 60th high school reunion. Technically, it'll still be our 59th year in September, but we reason that we will start our senior year in September, and that's close enough especially at our age. We don't want to get too decrepit to travel. This is not an official reunion sponsored by the school. Last August, 5 of us friends went from our high school, met in Portland for a mini reunion. We had such a good time that this time we decided to contact the entire class. Responses have been good. My friend in Arizona is handling the invitations. The friend is an ex-nun who still stays at Scholastica during part of her yearly trips to Duluth, so they can't be too mad at her. While in Portland, I get to visit 2 of my stepchildren who live in the neighborhood city of Vancouver, Washington. Stepson Robert took Adam by train to Seattle to keep him busy while I was there with the ladies. Yvonne and Robert had purchased a home together. Well, it's a manufactured home, like a trailer. Purchased a home together after he retired. She still works. All of my children, except Adam, are grandparents now. I'm not a grandparent either. I'm not a parent either. I think that they're trying to make me feel old. If you're going to visit your sons in Stockton this year, I would love to see you. Bring everybody over if you'd like. If your plans are too tight, I'm never against a trip, a casino in that direction. I keep failing to corrupt your sisters by luring them into the Black Bear, but the buffet is good if you're not a gambler. Or we could meet in Stockton as I pass through. If you think Bobby would like to attend the class reunion, send her the address, and I will see that she gets her invitation. I don't think there is a current address on her. I realize that she hasn't cared about attending in the past, but sometimes people change their minds. I'm sure I'd love to see her again. Say hi for her.
Yeah, she's kind of giving out the same information, but this is a little different. Yeah, Joan and George. Another year, they go by so fast. I'm a bit behind in my holiday stuff, but I think this happens every year, and I just don't recall the hectic rush. I hope that your year was good, and the medication is still helping. I lost my Aunt Anne last month. She was my mother's youngest sister. She had a stroke. I was half-packed and checked plane reservations when she took a sudden turn for the worse, and her sons discouraged me from coming, as they said she wouldn't know me. The plane fare for short-notice trips was too expensive, and I wasn't used to driving in the snow, and that she had requested no funeral. I've been writing her every week for a couple of months. I used the large font on the computer, and although she had one-sided paralysis, her husband found her too late to give her the anti-paralysis meds. She could read and seemed to look forward to my letters. She was a sweet, gentle soul, not high-strung like my mother, although they were very close. And I will miss her a lot. She was the main reason that I visited Duluth after both my parents were gone. Last August, Adam and I drove to Portland for a mini reunion with 4 of my high school friends. I kept in touch with them for over the years. If Bobby moved back to Duluth, she may recall the names Kathy Letourneau, Jean-Michel, Catherine Coughlin, and Mary Jean Steffen. Those were the maiden names. Jean had become a nun and later left the convent after 23 years, so she never married. In the convent, she was Sister Catherine, but I can't get used to calling her that. So she puts up with still calling her Jean. My stepchildren, Robert and Yvonne, live in the neighborhood city of Vancouver, Washington. So Adam stayed with them while I was at the reunion. Robert took him to Seattle to the train. Actually, we didn't quite get to Seattle, but tail him on. But yeah, Robert took him near Seattle by train to be part of the visit, as Adam had never been there. The reunion was such a success that now we want to do it with the whole class. This will be labeled our 60th high school reunion, even though since we will be getting together in late September of 2012, it's technically our 59th year. I'd like to travel. I know that Bobby hasn't attended past reunions, and I'm not sure that we have her address. Jean is handling the invitation letters, but I hope she will reconsider and come to this one. I know we'd all love to see her, especially me. They lived in Boulder. She was a wonderful person, and I will miss her very much. In high school, we were friends. She was everybody's friend, but in rival cliques. When the nuns assigned us to roommates, we were a little leery, but agreed to try. She was a great roommate. I wonder if, just for clarity's sake, is a lot of these stories are on the same day, so they write about the other one having died, but so is that before she died? It's writing to Herb. That's before she died. Yeah. So it's a letter that actually, that might be a little confusing, because that letter is actually before the other one. So did she learn that she died? Or...
Dear Pat and Jim, how can it possibly be Christmas already? Our halls are only half decked out around here, and I'm better getting gear with my cards. 2011 wasn't the greatest of years. I lost a close friend on December 2nd, and a dear aunt in Duluth in November. Also, Martha and John are having a rough time. His blood count is so low they had to stop the chemo. Speaking of travel, are we going to see you again? I'm assuming that you, Pat, and Pat are off between Christmas and New Year's. Was it Fridays that you have off, Jim? If I knew your schedule, I would book a casino room, and perhaps you could come up for the buffet. Or we're not that much into gambling. Maybe not. Failing that, maybe I could meet you for lunch the next day, the way home. Let me know if any of this sounds workable. It's been too long. Maybe have a wonderful Christmas. Wonderful family, and say hi to me.
Lisa and Sheldon. I bet the children will like this card. Also, there's a package on the way for them. But with the new priority box stuff, it may get there before the card does. Do you have a good time during your dad's Thanksgiving visit? He and I emailed now, and he's been putting things off. It's been so hectic around here that I haven't even yet had time to ask him about his trip. Besides, why did I say that like that? Did you have a good time during your dad's Thanksgiving visit? He and I emailed now and then, but things have been so hectic around here that I haven't even had time yet to ask him about his trip. Besides the usual Christmas rush, I have some really sick people in my life that I have been keeping close track of. A very special aunt in Duluth had a stroke a couple of months ago. She had to go into a nursing home, and then she suddenly took a bad turn and died at the end of November. I had been sending her weekly letters using the large font of the computer. She was enjoying getting the letters, and could actually read them until a heart problem kicked in. I had my suitcases half packed to go visit her, but once she went comatose, her sons discouraged me from coming, as she wouldn't have known I was there. Plus, the weather was rotten, and she requested there not be a funeral. I sure miss her, though. I have Noel crochet letters from my refrigerator that she made. They hardly ever spell out Noel, however, as the kids love to rearrange the letters. Those are for Aunt Anne, the Noel letters. So my mind is a little distracted from the Christmas preparations, and our halls are only half decked. And we may miss the whole thing if I don't soon get into another gear. Martha told me that some of Amanda's program is on Facebook. Martha was too busy to show me today, but she will. I hope that all went well. I'm sure it did, as Amanda was so talented. I hope that your Christmas is wonderful. Hugs all around. Bobby. De-Bobby. Bobby, with a Y. Bobby. Still not quite Christmas time. Greetings from the season from your long-lost cousin. Joan gave me your address. When I visit Duluth, I visit her and George, and the last couple of trips, Dee Dee has been there. We also have a good time, but I'm yet unsuccessful in luring them with me to the nearby Black Bear Casino. Maybe this year. Adam is also autistic. He has 2 college degrees, English and journalism, but is basically unemployable due to limited social skills. He'd make a good employee if he didn't have to work with people, but first you have to pass the job interview. He lives at home and gets Social Security disability. Herb and I have exchanged Christmas cards and messages for years. He phoned me when Linda died, and they lived in Stockton. We visited them a couple of times, and they came here once. Ooh. I'm so sorry about Linda. You know that he took it so hard. Last Christmas was tough. I hope that he finds some happy spots during the holidays. This year, my husband died. Okay. I'm so sorry about Linda, but maybe I should go back. She throws this curveball in here, so, I always told her about transitions. Gotta have transitions. Okay. Herb and I have exchanged Christmas cards and messages for years. He phoned me when Linda died. When they lived in Stockton, we visited them a couple of times, and they came here once. I am so sorry about Linda. You know that he took it hard. Last Christmas was tough. I hope that he finds some happy spots during the holidays this year. My husband died the year before Linda, so I can relate to the holidays being the worst period. Now that I've found you, please drop me a line. I can get reacquainted. Meanwhile, Merry Christmas. Love, Victoria. Yeah. Vivian and John. Christmas already. As you can see, I'm a little behind schedule. I don't know how I managed to squeeze in a job before I retired. A lot of it's from living too close to your kids. They fill your time with their stuff. Bob used to say that's why people move to Florida, and I didn't want to go. There are 4 original families still left in the block. I don't know if you know them. The Lunas, the Sparmans, the Napolitanos, and us. The rest are Asian. Not really, but we're definitely in the minority. There is a new mural over the inside entrance due to our new senior center. Bob's picture is up there, along with about 20 others. Dick DeLong for one, and both Levins. They're billed as people who made a big difference for Milpitas. The artist painted from photographs. Bob's portrait isn't great, but it's recognizable. When son Adam first saw it, he commented, "Gee, why didn't they take a picture from when he was well?" Still looking at it, though. You might want to check it out next time you're around here. And while you're at it, stop in for coffee. Do you guys ever go to the Blacko? I like video poker and blackjack, and have been there on the senior bus. About the only time I go to the senior center, although I usually go to Thunder Valley. It's a casino. I hope that your year was good, and that next year will be even better. Now we're into Christmas 2011. Well, almost.
Kathy and Buzz. You certainly had a full and exciting 2011. It was perhaps a little too exciting in parts. I'm glad that the floods are a memory now, and that you have ended up all right. Please tell your mother congratulations on her 85th birthday. Gambling is good for the brain cells. At least, I'm depending on that. It worked for quite a while with Bob's sister Martha. I keep telling her that she's the one who corrupted me by introducing me to video poker and blackjack. She has no real grasp of his condition, and occasionally gets angry because he won't take her to a casino. Their daughter Judy has their hands full, helping out her parents in Chicago. So I have no transition there. They've gone straight to, yeah. Okay, I need to do a transition again. About John Mossberger. Aunt Martha has no real grasp of his condition and occasionally gets angry because he won't take her to a casino. Their daughter Judy has her hands full helping out her parents in Chicago. Congratulations also on the Michigan property. It sounds wonderful and perfect for your circumstances. I'm enjoying retirement most days. My days are busy, however, and I don't know how I managed squeezing in a job while I was working. One problem is that some of my children and grandchildren live nearby. Once this is a blessing, there are also days when my schedule mostly relates to their stuff, and I recall Bob's teasing about moving to Florida. He claimed that people retired there to get away from the kids when he didn't want to leave. I miss Bob every day. I hope that I sent you in the newspaper clipping the nearby park that was dedicated to him. Also, just this year, they painted a mural over the entrance of our new community center. His face is up there with almost 20 others, as leaders who were credited with making a big difference in Milpitas. If I moved, I'd have to uproot the Robert E. Brown Park sign and put it on the back of a U-Haul. The mural would have to stay, however, as they might resent a 2-foot chunk carved out of their wall. I hope that your travels will someday bring you to this area, and you can check these things out. I know that chaos was approaching, so I purchased New Year's cards when I brought my Christmas cards. In my heart, I am wishing you a Merry Christmas before the fact that I hope that it was wonderful.
Yours is my first Christmas letter, which I hope will help mitigate the fact that I have to ignore Thanksgiving, even though I had purchased some cards. Things just got too hectic around here with Anne having a Thanksgiving and my dental bills. My suitcases were half packed in case she rallied in any way. I did get to Vegas last month. A favorite niece Judy and her husband were attending a wedding in Arizona and asked me to meet them in Vegas. They're fun people, and it was great. Also, I got a royal flush dealt to me. And we've been over that, so I'm skipping that. I had phoned Ron a couple of times because he was... Okay. Yeah, there's... I'm in Chapter 2 of my new book, Gambling for a Living. I had phoned Ron a couple of times because he was so devastated by Anne's death, and I am worried about him. Janice Slatterly had him over for Thanksgiving, bless her heart. Ron has never been a family favorite. I think that Anne wasn't even that crazy about him. But they stayed together and made it work, and I personally had no beef with him. He's not the brightest bulb in the tree. But he always had been decent to me, and I think Anne would have wanted me to check on him. On December 1st, I'll phone to check on Donald. And the date would have been Anne's birthday, and it would be a hard day for him. He's always more of a mama's boy than John. So Ron is Ron Brode. Just to make that clear, it's her husband, second husband, Ron Brode. Just to make that clear. It was worth it, though, to get the right card. Janice would have come to the Portland trip, except that she was too sick by then. Janice is one of the sweetest persons on earth. So this is the Janice that was dying in Colorado. So was Anne. And I've never seen either of them angry or upset. I personally am covered if you go by that old saying, the more you complain, the longer God lets you live. I may make 107. She made 88. Anyway, but yes, a friend of mine, the ex-nun, is organizing our 60th high school reunion in Duluth the last part of next September. It's really our 59th year. But she reasoned that we start school in September of our senior year, and that was close enough, as our ages would better hurry up before anyone else died, or because it became too decrepit to travel. I'm not totally sure what Skype is, but Martha was looking into it for me when I was feeling bad because I couldn't make it to Duluth because Anne was sinking so fast. I think that with Skype, you can see each other on the computer and can talk back and forth. Wouldn't that be great for you and Sam? It's good that Duluth is ahead of the curve in preparations to take care of the venerable aging population. It will make them money, too. It's not all kindness on their part. They know that we gray-haired people are going to take over the world. Not that we are old. Old age begins at 90. Are you enjoying being middle-aged, which started for you last August 29th? Happy birthday again. You can't wait until all of your darlings are teenagers. When you're on your third glass of wine when you wrote that. A couple of my sets of teenagers really pushed the envelope. When Donovan gets there, it'll be set 4. Although I may be too much in my dotage, but to realize, running for cover, the good idea. I may have mentioned that before, but I'm still trying to find someone to lift the curse I put on Martha when she was 16. When I wished her twin girls. That was awful as she was. Sarah was no twin, but she doesn't need one, as she's showing signs of being a handful at the early age of 14. By 16, she'll have to perfect it. I think Martha has already paid for her sins, which is why I'm trying to get the curse lifted. Should I try Angie's list? Oops, I just reread your paragraph, and I now realize that your statement about not being able to wait until boys were teenagers might have been tongue-in-cheek. Obviously, the mere thought of teenagers sent me into orbit. I'll enclose a couple. Besides, although it's November 28th today, receiving a Christmas card before December in here would be some kind of moral outrage. It seems like the store started putting up Christmas decorations in June, as it is, and I don't want to contribute to Russian Christmas. I just love the photo of the boys and Allie. In a few years, nobody's going to be able to mess with that gal. Not with all those mailed kinfolk hanging around in the background, watching out for her. Age 4 is one of my favorites with kids. You can almost reason with them at that point. I can just imagine how exciting Christmas is at your house, since it's really all about the kids. They make it magic for us. Even Danny has a lot of kid left in him. He gets almost as excited as Philip and Sarah. He insists on being an elf that distributes the presents. Some elf, he's 6'4", getting hefty, although last year he designated Phil as his assistant. Donovan just helps himself to anything that isn't nailed down, and then throws it. So it would be another year before the joy of anticipating sets in for him. You probably won't even have time left for decorating, since you spent much of this reading this letter. You and Dave have a magnificent Christmas with your family, and then will write and tell us all about it. Love, Victoria. Rosemary, hearing from you was a delightful surprise. I'm glad that everyone's doing so well. I bet you can't wait for February, Grandma. The first one will probably be late, so tell them to shoot for my birthday on February 13th. The internship of Eric's sounds great. Dan's Pam's and a paid internship for a few months, and I'd never heard of paid internships. Adams at the university newspaper sure wasn't. I had already heard good things about Janaea from Marge. Thank you for the invitation to Target Field. If the twins do well, they may be still playing ball in September, which is the next time I'm coming to Minnesota. I wish it happened before Ann died. I really wanted to fly to Duluth to say goodbye, but Donald kept discouraging as she went downhill so fast and didn't think that she'd even know me. Plane tickets on short notice are expensive, and I was torn. Also, I am not used to driving on ice and snow. Plus, the loan was in process. I imagine that Marge told you about Auntie Anne, and I tried to email you, but it came back. I hope you got to Duluth for Christmas. I know that there will be nothing keeping your dad from seeing the baby in February, but it's sometimes to take our love. Okay, what happened is she had the email address wrong. I hope you get to Duluth for Christmas. I know that there will be nothing keeping your dad from seeing the baby in February, but we sometimes take our loved ones for granted, and it is better to keep in touch as often as possible. I'm now sorry that I didn't come to Duluth last spring as I intended to before Aunt Anne had her stroke. Ron is pretty devastated. That's her husband. Tomorrow, December 1st, would have been her birthday. I imagine it would be a pretty sad day for Donald, Ron, and John, and me. I will send her a birthday check to match her age. And then she would turn around and send me $50 back, cash in an envelope, which I kept telling her not to do. Not only once to send it back, but also to send cash in the mail. It got to be a little ritual with us. Where is that? No, thanks for the wedding pictures from the bride's wall. Actually, it was my favorite Christmas card. We each chose our favorite card, and I leave them up all year. So it's been posted on the pantry door all year. Now it'll get transferred to the bride's wall. Dan is still on the Giants station, but getting disenchanted because they haven't hired him as full-time. As you know, many outfits use part-timers almost exclusively, so they don't have to pay them benefits. Speaking of education, I wish Dan would get back to school, but he can't possibly swing it this semester. I keep telling him that even one class a semester will eventually add up, but Pam will have to finish first. I think she has a semester or two to go. She dropped the part-time after Donovan came. I'm pretty sure her folks are paying her school bills. They have plenty of money, which is another thing I worry about since she's used to Coach bags and not sacrificing much. Coach bag was an expensive handbag back then. A ridiculously expensive leather handbag back then. As an aside. Kind of still is. I suppose we'll be juggling Christmas too. What are your Christmas plans? I bet you have to do a little juggling yourselves, with in-laws and grandparents in the mix. When the baby gets old enough, your Christmases will be even more special. It's nothing like seeing Christmas through the eyes of kids. Yeah. They get so excited, even Dan still gets excited. Each year insists on being the elf that gives out the presents. Some elf, 6'4", all that. Last year he allowed Philip the privilege of being his assistant elf. Donovan gets into everything. Won't even be able to put the gifts under the tree. I recall one year that Sarah was little. Martha phoned me in tears because Sarah had unwrapped all the presents. That was Philip. That was Dan. That wasn't Sarah, that was Dan. Sarah might have done it too, but I emphasize, but I remember thinking that she would keep a better eye on her kid. Moni, we haven't talked in a while, so it seems a good time to update you on our West Coast family. Is everyone adjusting well to Harley, and she to you? Since I hate Facebook, I'm sometimes out of the loop with what is going on, although Martha and Adam are good about telling me about what are pictures to see. She's beautiful. I worry that Martha shares too much on Facebook. Yes, I know it's just with 500 of her best friends, so she tells me. Yeah. I just don't think that everybody's personal business should be shot out to cyberspace, as it could come back to you to haunt you. I don't know a lot about computers, but I do hear on TV potential employers sometimes get hold of that stuff and rule you out for hiring. I really hated her Halloween picture and gave both her and Jim a little grief about it. Mostly Jim seems to be okay. I don't recall if I told you about the trip Adam and I took to Portland last August. I had a mini reunion with 4 of the friends from high school. We chose Portland because one of us, Casey, lives there, is tied to oxygen from emphysema, and couldn't travel down here when we'd originally planned to meet. Robert was nice enough to take Adam to Seattle on a train for part of that time, and it was in a reunion. I did stay with him and Yvonne for a couple of 6 nights. Yvonne was doing great without her neck brace, which has just recently been removed. It was nice to see that 2 of them and Yvonne coming down to see are here in May, perhaps Robert also. He has a friend who is ill and awaiting some sort of transplant, so cannot leave the Bay Area in case the organ becomes available. I hope that Robert had a good Thanksgiving with Sheldon and Lisa. I still have to email him and ask about it. I should have already been. The last couple of weeks have been exceptionally hectic. I wouldn't be surprised if Ian has a form of Asperger's, like Adam does. I had the impression that English people were practically walking social skills until I met Ian. He's on the spectrum. Yeah, he's like, oh, I have Asperger's. Martha's like, what? Yes, I apparently have that. Yeah, Adam was right. Ah. Yes, I do. That's what he said. Anyway, back to the story. He's also a better father now. The kids see him more and he has to pay attention to them, somewhat, because he has them every other weekend. The alternate weekend that he comes here for Sunday dinner, so that he can see the kids and get a free meal. On weekends in between, Martha brings Jim. On Sarah's birthday, they were both at the table. I think I was the only one not comfortable with that arrangement. Ian doesn't seem to have a speck of jealousy, which is probably why they're now divorced. Indifference is worse than fighting, my book. After Anne's stroke about 3 months ago, I wrote her every week at the nursing home. She was aware of it also until the last week when things went bad fast. Her husband is devastated, as they basically just had each other. Little trailer shack. I phoned him once in a while, and he never was a family favorite, but he's been all right with me. I would stay with them when I visited Duluth because they insisted. Dan and Pam have moved into their... transition is nuts. Dan and Pam have moved into their apartment, and they have a 6-month lease. It is not a great neighborhood near San Jose State, but just a few blocks from where David and his friend were shot. The friend wouldn't give up his wallet. Way back, like, in 1995. 1995. But still, yes, that keeps getting mentioned. At Martha's and my insistence, they visited the area at night to make sure there was enough fighting as Dan gets home late and work, and I was concerned about Pam going at it alone just with Donovan. Well, I think I've hit the high and low spots, and you are probably tired of reading by now. We still have your handicap ramp up because we like it. It probably needs a coat of stain, however. Any suggestions what we should use? Have a great Christmas. We'll be thinking of you. Marjorie. Christmas, of course. Marjorie. Hope things are settling down for you, that Mike's elbow continues to improve, and that Andrew's migraines are subsiding. You certainly have a lot to juggle. I've been trying to get to my box of papers each day, and came across the enclosed. Thank you for the kind words about Aunt Anne. I had phoned Ron a couple of times. He seems to be doing okay. On December 1st, which would have been her birthday, he and Donald took the ashes to Calvary. So there's a yeah, they didn't literally go to Israel. There's another Calvary in Minnesota. Yeah, I'm glad that Don helped with that. I think he paid for it, because the last time I spoke to Ron, he was trying to give me directions on how to find them in his shed, and further instructed where to put his, right next to Anne's, after he died. It was a little complicated, and finally told him that it was coming in September, and he could direct me then. Calvary is better. It's a cemetery. I had spent about a week looking for a card that didn't say Merry Christmas, because I knew it wouldn't be for them, and finally found one that hadn't mailed it yet, as it was waiting for pictures to enclose. We usually sent pictures of our families at least once a year. Next time I saw her was our 50th high school reunion. I'm not sure what's on the agenda for the reunion. I know that we are going to tour the cemetery at St. Scholastica. I hope that things get more exciting after that, although mainly we just want to see each other, talk and eat. Nobody officially is sponsoring the reunion. Perhaps I could suggest going to the Black Bear. Just kidding. Although I probably would get there myself before I leave. I've tried to teach a couple of friends and family how to gamble, and it was a chore. Ramona was the exception. She was a quick study. Also, she had a high IQ, practically Mensa. Yeah, why wasn't she a scientist then? Well, I guess she wanted to build stuff. Okay. We have a ball, and she visits from New Jersey. Adam took longer to get the hang of video poker, but now enjoys it. Kind of. The problem with him is that he never has any money, and they end up staking him. He also quickly gets tired of playing nickels, and finds quarters a lot more exciting. Same here. The last time I was in Vegas, I had a royal flush dealt to me. I had the lucky necklace you gave me in my pocket. It doesn't go with jeans, so it wasn't around my neck. Oddly enough, I had a royal flush dealt to me in August on the way back from Portland. It just proves that the gambling gods approve of my hobby. I should enjoy it, but don't be concerned. I set limits each time that I'll invest. If the amount doesn't pay off, I call it entertainment expenses. Even Adam will usually complain when I'm doing gambling, besides the fact that I assure him that I am not playing with the grocery money, urge me to go over... Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Even Adam, who usually complains when I go gambling, despite the fact that I assure him I'm not playing with grocery money, urged me to go after Anne died. For that time, I had also subscribed to the daily obituaries from Boulder, in case Janice died and George was just too wiped out to let me know. He did come through, but you never know how people react to a death. I knew George, of course, but Janice was the dear friend. He was just her husband, but I thought he was a very good husband to her. The family, including Bob, has insisted that I take off to the bus once a month. Martha would say with him, he knows the video poker is a stress breaker for me. Of course, that would make it hard for me to see Rosie, but maybe, with enough notice, she will be visiting you at the time, and there's always Hinckley, where you could meet, and we did once. I'm sorry to learn that your dad is slowing down noticeably. When I wrote to Rose, I urged him to visit Christmas, relating to Anne's sudden passing, and how I wished I had gone to Duluth last spring to see her. I mentioned nothing of what you told me about her not making enough contact with him, and in Rosie's defense, it's hard finding time to travel when you're working and have so much going on with family. I don't know how I worked and got anything done, judging from how there's never enough for me during the days. Now I'm retired. Boredom is not one of my problems, that's for sure. I'm very glad that I have the cataract surgery. I could get by without glasses now, except cheers for reading, and found that I missed them. I'm going to skip the glasses part. We've been over that a couple times. I'm going to skip the glasses part. Because she rambles like I do when I'm doing like a blog. Very much so. I'm going to say this thing that I said 9 times. I'm going to say it again. Except she comes at it from ADHD. Like she was like, yeah, she comes at it like I just forgot. Whereas I just want to say it again, just to say it again. That's different. It's like I know full well I said it, but I'm just gonna say it again. It's different. I hope you will not have a trip planned for the last 2 weeks of September, and that I can see you. The boys back in school this month. You probably will be around, unless you have to get away after all the work of getting them ready to go back to class. I will let you know exact dates when they develop. So far, they've not been sucked into helping arrange things, which is a good friend in Arizona is doing that. But you'd be surprised if I don't get drafted. She has my email address and uses it often. Have the best of Christmases. My love to you guys. Love, the Victoria.